This is Sandstorm. This is Sandstorm.
Sanctuary, my sanctuary. Sanctuary,
This
my
is
sanctuary.
Sandstorm.
In you and I, there's a new land. Angels sanctuary, my sanctuary, where fears and lies melt away. What's left of me? What's left of me now? I watch you fast asleep. All I fear means nothing. In you and I, there's a new land.
Yo, 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 yo. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? We are here for another Stormcast brought to you by the great people that I know as Geronimo. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Glad to be back.
And my boy.
What's going on, man?
Action
Jack.
Jack, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good, man. This is my first time seeing Geronimo in person, man. I always see the
Yeah,
content.
yeah, man. I'm getting more used to throwing my face on content nowadays.
Okay,
But yeah, man, glad to see you in person too, or
that's what's up,
webcam
man.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah. We officially enlisted Geronimo as part of the team.
I'm in
Nice.
here.
Yeah, so he's part of the Stormcast team, man. So yeah, we love having him on. So yeah, beautiful Saturday, beautiful Saturday.
Hmm.
Well, not visually, but beautiful Saturday. Uh,
We had some sun down here a little bit. I was outside today.
okay,
It did
Yeah.
get cloudy and get colder, but we got sun
Yeah.
again later.
That was
Yeah.
kind of weird today because Florida's been up
Mhm.
and down.
Mm,
So, being the wife went out on like a morning date and it was cloudy and windy, but it was like, all right, cool enough because she's from New York, so she loved it. But I'm out
oh
here
Oh, there you
freezing my
go.
behind off.
yeah, so they talk about global warming and global cooling and all that silly stuff, but like Michigan is always Michigan. So like
Yeah,
if it's
same thing.
cold, if it's winter, we already know that. We
Yeah.
are that's we've been had that. Like
Yep.
the only thing that would surprise us is if we had a sandstorm or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Maybe an earthquake, but like outside of that, like ain't nothing. Like it hurricanes because the lakes aren't big enough to have their to produce a hurricane. Maybe
Right.
that, but like we get tornadoes, so it's like it's not that much of a difference. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
yeah, but yeah, it great weekend for us because My team has won the first of 2 games. And this game consisted as being an away game for them. Michigan
Okay.
State handled their own against Michigan, so you know,
Okay.
good
Oh,
job, team,
wow.
good job, team, good job, team.
That's pretty good.
You know, Michigan is known to be the football team. We're known to be the basketball team, but like Michigan and basketball has gotten a lot better over the years. So,
Okay.
so you know, it's a reminder. You know what I'm saying? They like to call us little brother. We hate that. Hate that.
Oh,
So
God.
so you know, when quote unquote big brother comes through and you know, wants to puff out their chest, like let's remind you what team is known for basketball. Stay in your lane.
Right.
um yeah, so we got a great show for you today. It's going to be a very interesting one. I'm sure the chat is going to go crazy over this one. There's going to be a lot to talk about. But before we do, you know how we do. We got to pray in, and then we got to hit this icebreaker.
Yes,
So,
sir.
let me see. Baby Sandstorm, do you want to pray us in? No, that's okay. You just stay there.
At least she's
No, I'm
honest.
cool. You give me an option?
At least she's honest. At least she's honest.
Are you praying in? Oh, okay. Well, then you can go. You can go mind your business.
It's prayer. God be here for this.
Oh, wow. Okay. Father God, thank you for giving us a safe space to be able to talk about the things we love. We thank you for keeping us protected, watching over our families. If there's any problems that we're going through, we know that we can place them on you because you make a way, even if there isn't a way that we can see. We thank you for holding our hands and walking us through the storms that we go through daily. We trust you and honor you, and just thank you for our time together. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 Like and subscribe.
Oh my God.
Hey, there go your hype person right there.
Right. Sneaking in the hype.
Right.
So real quickly here, I got to do some housekeeping too, because I haven't done this in a while, and I know when Vito jumps in, he's gonna make sure he does the housekeeping. One, we have new Nami every other week. Make sure you guys come over there and check that out. That's our anime piece. You can check it out on Nodoka Yui's channel, Nodoka Nodoka Yui Yui. If you can't find the channel, we always have it airing on this channel as well. So make sure that you show up just and can converse with us. We go deep into the anime world and just have all our fun. There's nothing new to update as far as the Vitoverse, but that is still coming. We're just still making sure we get some stuff in order. So housekeeping done. So the icebreaker today. If one of my moderators, appreciate you. If one of my moderators can come through and put the icebreaker in the chat, if you would. The icebreaker today is get y'all thinking a little bit. If you could be the main character in whatever video game and live in that world, which game would it be?
Main character.
Now keep in mind the things that make that character still have to be in play. So
Okay.
Okay. Consider the story and the characterization. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question.
I think I got one for you. I got
Okay.
one. It's a super safe one.
Like this could be, huh?
Yeah, because I'm thinking about like pros and cons as fast as I can. But I'm gonna shoot for Stardew Valley. And the reason why I go that route of, once again, super safe. But then also too, I love the aspect, if in real life it was as simple of being a part of a community, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of move in, get inherit a farm, and you get taught how to actually farm, and that's something like I'm still trying to figure out the whole green thumb thing, you know. Especially when you start talking about like not having like a fenced-in yard, so anything can kind of come in and mess with your garden if you have one, whether it's above ground or on ground. But to have that much space and to actually farm and be able to develop relationships and be like a walk away from a city to be able to go and be a part of these events, I think Stardew Valley would be a key for me for sure.
Okay.
What's up, Dark Boy?
That is interesting.
Okay, I like that one. Let me see. RJ said, "Oh, thank you, Jay. Appreciate that." Yeah, Jay put up the
icebreaker.
Yeah, Jay put up the icebreaker for us. Thank you. Golly, this is not good. There we go. RJ said Xenoblade series. I love the series with fantasy and sci-fi.
Ooh, that would scare me.
Yeah,
like, you know, you just walking around and you see this huge gorilla.
Right.
If you look at him sideways, that's it.
You want to fight me, huh?
Right.
You level 5 and I'm level 89. Okay.
Even as the main character, you still get stuck. You be like,
right.
Yeah. You actually have to have a strategy going against that one.
Feelings of I don't care about who your cousin is. I don't care about your family.
Right.
I don't care about your friend. I don't care about none of that. I'm killing you. You the main character? No, look at me. I'm the main character.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That is a tough one.
Actually, I have one.
New Donk City. Okay.
New Donk City is pretty cool. The last time I played Mario Odyssey, which was I guess a month ago now, it feels like a month, for a video, and I was running around there, and I was like, man, I missed this game. They hit a little too hard in 2017 with this game, man. It was crazy. Atelier. That one popped in my head actually, because every time I see those RPGs, they just look they look chill for JRPGs.
Yeah,
as far as like stakes, I guess. It's not like some world-ending. Oh, now we have to combine our powers and defeat this godly entity stuff. Yeah, it was more like, I don't know, more practical.
Right.
I guess.
I feel that.
Yeah.
So what about you, Geronimo? What are you feeling?
This is gonna sound kind of wild, but I've been kind of nostalgic for the series lately. I think because Hideki Kamiya made his new version of the Clovers, but the Beautiful Joe world be interesting because the beginning is literally he gets transported into a movie and he gets these powers, and that concept was always so like far out for me, but it seems pretty cool at the same time because you get these time, you know, like what's slow and speed and fast forward, and I think in 2 you have the replay move and zoom and all that. That'd be interesting. That'd be real interesting.
I feel that.
Yeah.
For me, man, I ran through this for a long time. Like, what could be safe? And I thought Xenoblade first too, but I was like, man, all those monsters would kill me.
Right.
Like, I ain't not about to play with me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, especially after 3, man.
Right.
Understand where we led to get to Ionios, man.
Right. I'm like, Zelda? Nah, not Zelda, because there's way too much. There's way too much messery in that.
I have to like which Zelda game specifically?
Yeah, any of them. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so much. It's not even the like, oh, I have to deal with this. It's the messery. You know what I'm saying? I can't say that. It's the messery of a whole bunch of these things. You know what I mean? Oh, you want to be on Ocarina of Time? Oh, well, you know, your mom died and you have to be in this forest. And just so you know, you really can't go back and forth between the forest, or you turn it to some sort of monster. But as long as you have a fairy. But if I complete my mission, then I no longer have that fairy. You know what I mean? Like, that's
true.
Just too much messery. Majora's Mask? I don't think so. That's just the absolute. No, that's not happening.
No.
Every day looking at that? No, I don't think so. You ain't playing with
a lot going on in Termina.
Yeah.
A lot going on. Some heavy subjects going on there.
You know, Link to the Past has Light and Dark World. I don't think I really want to have to deal with that. Tears of the Kingdom has the same thing except for worse.
Yeah.
Skyward Sword has a giant hurricane sitting at the bottom of the clouds. I don't
Yeah.
want to mess with that. Twilight Princess, everybody is like
The castle is encased in like this Twilight thing.
in the Twilight world. Like I don't want to deal with
Twilight
that.
realm, yeah.
And it's up. And the worst part is all of these problems, and it's up to me to fix it.
Right.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Not happening. Like, babe, you want to come out with me? Maybe later. I gotta go save the world again. You just did that last time. I know. I'm sorry, but if the world ain't saved, and ain't nobody strong enough to save it except for me.
Exactly.
Listen, I can take you out, but I'm gonna take you to this place. It's gonna be sexy, babe. I promise you. Ooh, what's it called? Babe, it's so sexy. What's it called? It's so sexy. You gonna love it. What's it called? Water Temple, babe. Water Temple.
Whatever. The crazy part about Zelda 2, like, even if you say, all right, I'm the only one that's strong enough to do it, even if somebody was bold enough, there's some things they will not be given solely based off the fact that they're not within like the lore of everything. It's like, oh, you're not the one we're talking about with the green tunic, so no, I'm not giving you
Right.
Like,
Yeah, yep.
so just
I
off
wore
rip,
the
you're gonna
blue one.
lose because
I wore the
your
blue one.
clothes are wrong. Like,
Maybe
My
some
tunic
other
is
color. It's
blue.
like, okay, you're
Tell
fine.
me, I was just swimming. What do you want from me? I can breathe now. I can breathe underwater. Yeah, but it ain't green, so you definitely can't be underwater. Do you see the sword on my back?
Yeah, but
it
your
looks like
clothes,
cosplay. You know what I'm saying? So dang. I lost my train of thought. I would have said Kirby. But super pause. I'm not trying to taste everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'll just leave it
I ain't
Kirby
trying
at
to
that.
be that one. Like, I'm not about to get clowned. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, hey, bro, over there, he just be trying to have everybody. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? If you say to me,
I am
Especially
cool
that
with
last
all that.
whoa, don't suck me up. You know what
I'm good.
I'm saying? I ain't trying to be that guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't happening for me. So I think probably one of the safer ones. I'm not even Pokemon, because Pokemon goes through cataclysmic events.
Especially the movies.
Yeah. And if the games are anything like the movies, they all gonna die every single time. They all gonna die.
Yeah.
But it's crazy though, because like the claim to fame within Pokemon are the Pokemon, and it's like, okay, 12 years old, go out there and be a trainer. For the adults that just didn't partake in it, or did the adults partake in it and just like kind of gave it up and start living that regular life? I'm curious. Like, all this crazy stuff is happening now. Like, why didn't this happen with you as a trainer? Like, what's going on?
It's so weird. It's so weird to me, because it's in that world they treat the thought of being a Pokemon master like being the richest person in the world. Like, at that point, you know what I'm saying? And everybody has, like, in this world, everybody has a chance, an opportunity to be the richest person in the world, be a Pokemon master, right? But all these people fall off, and then they take their butts over to the unemployment office. And it's like, hey, I need a job. You didn't make it as a Pokemon trainer either? Nope. Yeah, you look about 27, 28. I think you should have probably gave it up a couple years ago. So we got this job over here for you, working with other Geo. You got a Geodude? Yeah, I got a Geodude. Okay, well, you and your Geodude gonna be spending the rest of the next of your lifetime picking up rocks, over here in this demolition place. Yeah. How much that pay? Enough for you to live and your Geodude.
Right.
That's all you need. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's gotta be that. The world of Pokemon has got to be tough. And what if you got a psychic Pokemon? This is the one thing I don't understand.
Psychic Pokemon, bug Pokemon, they all kind of scary.
You got psychic Pokemon, but you ain't winning. You should win against everybody, all the time. Unless you don't have the psychic connection, then I understand. But at least your Pokemon should be smart enough to know when to dodge. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
I seen this coming. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Future sight. Yep.
right. Let me dodge. Why did you dodge? Because okay, yeah. No. The
Because that
Pokemon
that Pokemon life is, it could be so exact in a way to where, like, if you don't make it, do you just keep going? And if you keep going, where is your loot coming from? And then who implemented this whole process of let's fight for cash? Like, like there's no time to where like I fight somebody who's like, you know what, you beat me, but I only got like a high potion on me. Like it's all about cash. Like they're really out here dog fighting with Pokemon like for cash.
Every time. And that sucker just lost just a second ago. Go find him real quick.
Right.
You giving him money. All you got to do, but you know, in that same sense, all you got to do is just bring you a Meowth with you, and you set for everything.
Payday.
Like, you know what? I
Payday.
am never fighting a single person. We're gonna find these Weedle out here and payday every single time. Bring!
Can you imagine? That could literally like be a whole farming situation. Like we just get a whole bunch of meows and then use payday. Ain't gotta work. They gotta work another day in my life.
A whole roster.
What?
Yeah.
Shop? No. Absolutely not. They get fed. You know. It ain't that. Yeah. So I was thinking one of the safe ones could probably be, because I don't remember the whole statistic of it. Could be custom Robo.
Okay.
I think that would be pretty safe. And in that same regard, I know not too many people know about this game. But a little game called Power Quest. It is probably one of my favorite Game Boy games of all time. It's a fighter. And if any of y'all have Game Boys or Game Boy Colors, I highly suggest you go pick up this game.
Power Quest?
Power Quest.
Power
Yeah.
Quest. I'm gonna look it up.
And is basically the whole custom Robo, but just in a fighter sense.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So it looks like they have a color version.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess it's only Game Boy Color, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Sunsoft.
It's I think it was originally in Game Boy. Well, no, maybe it was Game Boy Color.
Hold on, let me take a look.
I wonder, it's kind of obscure.
Yeah,
I like this from Sunsoft. Like I really like Sunsoft. Okay.
Yep, back in the 90s. It was a great game. Great game.
Cool, actually. Yeah.
And you're just using little models, you know what I'm saying, and fighting back and forth, man. I would love that. Like if that was and in the same vein as Pokemon, like that's people's like jobs, you know what I'm saying? Like that's their livelihood. So the different areas that you go into a factory and dude's like, hey kid, get out of the factory. Whoa, before you do though, let's have this battle real quick. You like, but sure, I'll take your money. I'll take your little 9-to-5 money real quick. I'll drop that off you real quick.
Looking at this type of game though, it looks like this was a huge miss for what is the name of that? Big Hero 6. Because in the beginning of that movie, like that really would have worked. Just kind of like your little
big dude.
Yeah,
it looks exactly like him. It looks exactly like him. Yeah.
This seemed like the type of game that would actually randomly pop up on the Game Boy in the Soul.
Yep.
This seemed like one of them. And then people be like,
random.
that's not the game I asked for.
Right.
And everybody else, like Sandstorm, be like, yo, that's Twitter in a nutshell.
Play that, because that game is fire. Yeah.
I'm gonna keep my eye on it for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun. I hope they eventually do, but I don't know. Sunsoft is defunct now, right? So I don't know.
I think so. Yeah.
I think so.
I don't know who's gonna be.
But it had Capcom's name tied to it too, so Capcom might have something to say.
That is true.
Yeah.
They might have the IP.
Well, shoot, if it is Capcom, then it's dead in the water because they don't believe in anything. They don't believe in their own IP. So
I remember Capcom had a Gotcha Force back in the day.
Man.
Yeah.
Friend of mine from like college days over a decade ago, he had that, and I never heard of it. And I was watching, and I was like, "This looks fire! How come I never knew about this back in the day?"
Right.
Crazy. But yeah, this kind of reminds me of a little bit, just from a 2D sense.
Yeah. What up, Joycey? What up, Black? Appreciate y'all coming through too. Brand Smith, Risky. I forgot to go down this line again. J Biggs, appreciate you coming through. RJ, Exodia, Dark Void, appreciate y'all. Yeah, game is a lot of fun. What did Alexa say? I'm quite curious what Nintendo is going to do now that Niantic, whatever is called that created Go, want to sell their company off to Saudi Arabia.
Interesting.
I did hear about that. I haven't read too deep into it because why would they do that?
Yeah.
Why would they? I mean, Niantic made more stuff than just Pokemon Go. But
Yeah,
at the same time, I'm sure they had to have had some sort of like an agreement.
yeah.
Pokemon.
I think if Nintendo lets them go, it's probably because they don't see too much interest, or not interest. That's not the right word. They don't really care too much to like still delve into like cell phone games.
Well, I mean, they just got TGC, so I mean, they kind of have to keep that running for a while.
Yeah,
But I don't think Niantic did TGC though.
yeah, no, they didn't.
Yeah.
So in that regards, yeah, I don't know. I mean, they could literally treat them like Rare. Like Rare was off and popping during the time, but they were just like, but Saudi, isn't one of the Saudi Arabia guys, or like the king or the prince or something like that? Didn't he put a share into Nintendo?
I've heard something like that. I wasn't sure if it was Saudi Arabia though, but I know somebody did.
Yeah, I felt like it was, but they only allowed him to put in so much. Like he wanted to put in enough to have like an actual stake, and they're like,
"Nah, my boy.
Nah.
What do you know about gaming, sir?
That's a slippery slope.
Down.
Yeah, I think it is the Saudi prince. I haven't.
Okay.
He's been investing in other game companies too over the past 3-4 years or something. I know some people online get a little concerned about that, I guess, but I remember reading last year. I guess I don't know how it works. I guess he reduced his investment, or they did in Nintendo. So
that's one thing. Like I never get concerned about investments because you never know who's all invested in what company you like.
Right.
So unless you really do the research, there might be some people that you completely disagree with their practices and they're invested in your favorite company.
Yeah.
Like a lot of game developers, publishers got their fingers in the 10-cent pie. So.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He said Nintendo or work will be done by DNA. True. And the other company. What's the company now they have, and not, man, we never talk about this for the Switch 2, and I'll probably bring it up later. But is it no, not Next Level. Avalanche?
Yeah, okay.
The one that they bought off of WB, who did the port for Hogwarts and
Shiver Entertainment.
Shiver, thank you.
Yeah.
They bought them solely for ports and stuff like that. So
that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. So they were going to ensure like, oh, you can't bring your game over. Oh, we know who can.
Warehouse.
That's fine. We got somebody. Don't worry about it.
All right.
Yep, Shiver. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, RJ.
Yeah, appreciate RJ.
So the main topic today. Thank you guys so much for putting your ideas and thoughts about the icebreaker. If you do still have an idea of what world you would be in as the main character, let us know. I'll still throw it up in the chat so you can get your justice on it. So with that being said, we are in the year 2025. Glorious 2025.
Crazy.
It is the year of craziness.
That is an understatement.
It really is.
Yeah, it's about to get real crazy. And in this glorious year, this year didn't just come off as a surprise, but it's kind of a building up. As we have been living throughout these gaming generations. And so with that being said, we're going to take it back to yesteryear and figure out exactly how did we get to this point?
Mm.
How did we get to this
Oh,
point
yeah.
in
That's
gaming
interesting.
history?
It's gonna be
Um,
fun.
and
Mm.
not even just the business side, but our own personal experiences as to how we got here, how our
Okay.
mindsets got here, how the industry has gotten here, and even like how our family and friends and all that other stuff has gotten here.
Okay.
And so let me take you back to a time, a glorious time. Now Jack and I are about the same age, so we're gonna start, and we're gonna start in the generation that let's say Nintendo saved the gaming industry in, which is the original Nintendo, the NES console. So did both of y'all have an NES?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
My older sister did, so I
Okay.
was really young, but I did have some exposure to NES back then.
Mm-hmm.
2025 is the year of A minors and the
Like you're paying minors.
A year at A minus for sure.
That's so
a
true,
unanimous
though.
talk.
That is funny.
um
Um,
So, what was your first experience with? Because, well, let me ask this question first.
mhm.
What other systems did you have that belonged in the third generation?
that was pretty much the only one we had. It's like the family console. It was
Okay.
really just my sister, older sister. She played it, and she would have me playing like Super Mario Brothers with like as Luigi as a second player. But as you know, she got older and went to college or whatever, and you know that was what I played for a bit before I got. So it's so this was like the early mid 90s for me
Yeah.
playing
Yeah.
the original NES. We did not have a Super Nintendo, so I missed out on a lot of Super Nintendo until like the past. Yeah, it's crazy, right? So I missed out on a lot of it from the past 10, 15 years. So I went from the NES to the N64 as a kid.
That's a jump.
Okay.
sir.
It was a massive jump.
Not
Yeah.
even like a Genesis.
I had one of my good friends as a kid. He had a Genesis like in my neighborhood. So
Yeah.
that was my fourth gen 16-bit experience. A lot of Sonic, a lot of like
Okay.
what's that game called? Alter Beast,
Alter
Mortal
Beast.
Kombat,
Yeah.
Vector Man. Yeah, so it was a little bit of Streets of Rage. So yeah, that was a lot of my 16-bit stuff.
Okay.
But for as like NES though, it's a pretty small but pretty normal things I
Mhm.
played. We had like we had Super Mario Brothers trilogy.
Mhm.
We had the first Zelda, and I as a kid I could not wrap my head around the first Zelda, so I didn't really
Me
play
either.
Zelda more until later. Yeah, we
I'm
what else
going
we
back
had?
now. Like I'm going back.
Right, right. Like most of the Zeldas I play are 3D, and I played like
Yeah.
a handful of the 2D ones. So I do need
Yeah.
to go back and play more 2D ones for sure.
Mhm.
But of course we had Tetris. We had
Yep.
Tetris, the OG
Mhm.
NES Tetris. Donkey Kong. We didn't have Donkey. Oh no, we had Donkey Kong 2, or is that Junior?
Oh, you talking about on the Game Boy?
On
On the
the
Game Boy.
the NES. Oh man, I don't have the it's
Oh, you
work
talking about
somewhere.
the? Is that the one with the rope?
Jumpman?
It was the one where you play as Donkey Kong Jr. and you're saving Donkey Kong from Mario.
Yeah,
They have like
yeah,
the
yeah.
vines and stuff. It's
Yeah,
on
with
in
the
this
rope.
show.
Yeah.
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 And then what else do we have? We had was it one of the track and field games? We had one of those.
Oh man, with the
Mhm.
pad.
Yeah,
Yep.
we had the pad.
Oh, y'all had the pad.
Yeah, the
Oh,
pad barely
man.
worked though, so I would
Yeah.
just be like, I would
Yeah.
like get on the floor and just slap it with my hands. Oh
I
man,
was lost to the black guy.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, that's pretty much most of my NES exposure growing up for sure. But some other stuff I did manage to later on, just growing up in general, get my hands on other retro consoles and stuff. I did mess around with some of the Mega Man games back then. I played some of Zelda 2 once,
Mhm.
and then I got the game over, and Galen was just like, "Ha ha!" He did the little "ho ho ho" laugh at me,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, okay, I see how it is." Played a little bit of the original Metroid, though I played the first Metroid through Zero Mission, so that's
Okay.
the main
Oh,
way to
okay,
play
okay.
through it. Yeah. So that's pretty much the gist of it. I think the main things I missed of that generation, um, Well, yeah, never finished 100% through the OG Zelda. So like when Breath of the Wild came out and people were tripping about Lionels, I was like, what are Lionels? People were like,
Right.
oh, they're from the first Zelda, and I was like, oh, I got stuck in the first Zelda after like the first 4 or 5 screens. Like I never really
Right.
figured out, you know, you had to have a map to get to the dungeons and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Metroid up to a time, honestly till early 2000s. I really didn't get into Metroid like that, and I guess one of the smaller things like didn't play Ice Climber until Smash Brothers. I'll be completely honest.
Phew.
Kid Icarus. I think those must be the main things. Yeah, I think
Okay.
those are the main things. Yeah.
Okay. Let me see.
Oh, and
Jay-
Kirby. My bad, Kirby. That's what it was.
Oh, Kirby. Yeah.
I didn't play
the
Kirby
final game
Adventure
in
until
the-
later.
Oh man, that game was that's
It's heat,
still
actually.
one of my favorite. Actually.
It holds up for an NES game. It holds up really well.
Yeah. Dark Voice said I only had an NES. And of course, like everyone else, my first experience was playing Super Mario Bros.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fact.
Yeah.
Like I said, my first console was DS. We got both when I was young. That's okay. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Oh, man.
That was a lot.
You
You
got
made me
yeah.
feel
Tell us
old. I
that
don't
way.
feel that old.
Like, so quick question though, like first console because your family wasn't into it, but or first console because that's just you're showing your age right now.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
yeah.
That's real. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me know.
I
That
am
means we got a
curious.
wide demographic. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was all according to Nintendo plans. Like this Wii, the Wii Remote, Wii Sports, we getting
Yeah.
everybody into our stuff.
Right.
Oh no way, Dark Void. I didn't know
Dark
about
Voice
those
said I played Bible Adventures.
Bible
Back in-
Adventures.
Mr.
I
Hyde.
only
Yo,
saw
angry
that game.
video
I
game
never-
nerd games.
yeah.
Angry video game nerd games.
I remember Bible Adventure. I remember Bible Adventure. There was another game that had like angels in it, and it was like top down, but I can never remember the name of the game. I used to play the mess out of that game too. It was almost like what's that? Like 1940 with the airplane. You know, you just shoot.
Oh, you talking about like
1943?
1942 or 42?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, except for it was with angels, and they would shoot the like the feathers and stuff like that, and you would get different.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. Anyway, I just said I started off with the Game Boy because it belonged to my parents in 1993, and
Nice.
SNES in '95. I was 3 and 5 at those points. Okay.
Man,
okay.
when you mentioned this topic and you said the third generation. Now, granted, let me paint a picture.
Mhm.
I primarily grew up with my grandparents. So my grandparents, my mother, and then I had a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins, right? So my family's super young. So I'm thinking like we're in it's a house of about 6 or 7. So money's kind of tight. Like my grandfather works at like a chicken plant and my grandmother works at like a sewing machine factory. So I'm thinking, you know, okay, as an adult, they couldn't have had too much bread to kind of disperse, especially with that many kids. You know,
Right.
but then I look
Yeah.
at this and I'm like, wait a minute. We had an NES. We had
Mhm.
a Sega Master System because I remember that
Mhm.
vividly because that's where I played what was it? Is it Bonk? I think I played Bonk.
Bonk
And
Land?
also
Okay.
Alex the Kid. That was one of my go-tos.
Mm.
And then also too, we had the Atari 7800 because I remember my grandfather. He came home from work and one of his co-workers sold him an Atari with a box full of cartridges, and that was my first time playing Pitfall.
Mm.
So,
Oh, that's pretty sick.
and I wish he was still alive today to where I could have asked him, "Were you the gamer or was the kids the gamers?" Because my very first thing I've ever played was Pac-Man, but it was on like a handheld Pac-Man. It was like a half a face, and you played Pac-Man.
I had
Okay.
something similar to that too. It was a Miss Pac-Man one.
Yeah, and
It had
so
the
my
little
grandfather
knob,
used to play this, like play the crap out of it. But going back, I'm curious, was my grandfather the gamer? And this is why he was so like lenient on me doing the movie gallery, Blockbuster, Video Warehouse runs because he used the game at one point in time before it got a little too crazy with the buttons and stuff outside of just your standard. So I'm curious, but yeah, that's nuts. Just kind of looking back at what was considered the third generation and how we had 3 out of the 4 that they
Yeah.
have up here.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. So So
That's
for
fire.
so for me, I know the NES was my first. My brother actually got me. I don't know if I was gaming before then, but
Mhm.
back to my memories can recall. My brother was the one who got me into gaming in the first place, and like everybody else has said, like Mario Bros was probably the first thing that I had,
Yep.
and he had that
Yeah.
the triple set. So the one cartridge that came with Mario Bros, Duck Hunt, and Track and Field,
Right.
and he had the pad to go with it, and the shooter and the light gun.
Yeah.
And I think after that, my mom bought me my own NES. So I had both versions. I had the front loader and I had the top loader.
Mm.
And I remember we had Mario, we had Pac-Man, we had Batman, Mega Man 6, Narc, which I love Narc. Love Narc. It was one of the two times where my mom made a huge mistake.
Oh boy.
Yeah, because my mom, both my parents are police officers or were police officers.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and
Oh,
so
snap.
like Narc was one of those ways to be like, okay, police officer life, and then you play the game, and it's like RoboCop police officer life. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying?
Right. Right.
RoboCop is pretty hardcore. So yeah.
Had Kirby, had Kirby Adventure. I had a bunch of games on there. This is like one of the last games that I had. Actually, this is so 3 mistakes. This is the last game that I had, and if you know anything about this, about this anime, then you know. If you know, you know. But this is my actual original one, and I've held on to it forever. But yeah, that's
Oh wow. I've never
Yeah.
seen
Top
that.
Secret.
Go
Go
13.
13. Yo, if you know anything about Go 13, you know, like, yeah. If
Interesting.
you've never seen the show, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. Watch it by yourself, not with your kids.
Uh-oh.
He is like the equivalent of like the Japanese version of like James Bond, but like
Okay.
uncensored James Bond. So
Oh wow. Interesting. Okay.
like my man's first episode, I can tell you, first episode. This is the reason why he has his gun. First episode is a plane. It's a plane, and somebody's hijacked the plane, and the plane is still on the runway. They call this man up, and it's like, "Yo, go! We really need your help. We need to get this guy." He's like, Are they in the cockpit?" He's like, "Yes." Pause. And so they got all these shooters sitting on the grass. And he's like, "Okay, this is what I want you to do for me. Make this gun right here. Make this gun for me with these specific measurements." And the guy's like, "That's ridiculous. You can't make a gun with those specific measurements." And he said, "You heard what I said." And he's like, "All right, well, what are you about to go do?" He's like, "I'm about to go handle business." He leaves. He goes and makes the love mess out of this woman. And
Okay.
and then he comes back, and they're like, "Hey, you know those specific measurements you wanted for the specific shot that you wanted? Well, the guy actually got the airplane to move like 16 feet to the left. So the shot that you were looking for is not the same shot." He said, "Give me the gun." He goes into the woods that's 100 meters behind the rest of the people, the rest of the assault team, goes through the scope, and blow, just from that distance, back in the trunk, end of the first episode. You like, what? Wait a minute. What just happened? He asked for $2 million or something like that. He was like, "I need the money up front." You know, yeah. So I didn't find that out until like way later, until after having that game. But yeah, so
That's pretty funny.
so the NES was our prime thing, and then we had the Game Boy as well. And I don't feel like we had like too many Game Boy games. We had the greatest Wario to ever come out. I'm sorry, I don't care what anybody says.
Really?
Wario Land, Super Mario. Is that Super Mario Land 3? Wario Land?
3.
I think that was the last
Yeah.
Game Boy one before the Advance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
because they went to 4 with their balance, right?
Yep.
That is
Yeah.
the best. That is the best Wario game. Like he gets the different hats. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the side scroller, and they all do different things. From there on, he was just like, they were just like, nah, he ain't never do that. Like, he's not that. Not that guy. Like,
But that's weird though. Like when you bring up Wario, like Wario really had his own lane running right next to Mario, and then just kind of went the route of the mini games. Now, granted, you had these mini games in the Wario games at some point, but still, it was like, again, it kind of reminded me of Kirby, to where if you play Kirby, there's inklings and signs and font and things of that nature that's similar to Smash Bros. So you can see it. It's all right there. So, but Wario to me is a different type of game, because now, correct me if I'm wrong, was Wario always the style it is now, in the nature of get to the end of the level, hit the timer, and then have to make it all the way back to the beginning of the level?
Definitely not.
Okay, yeah, because that's something new then. Because I know the one on GameCube is not like that, but Wario Land 4 is like that, to where it's kind of like the that pizza game that came out not too long ago.
Yeah,
Pizza Tower. So it's got to go all the way through, hit the buzzer, and then make it all the way back. That's an interesting mechanic, which I'm not a fan of, but it's an interesting one nonetheless. But I would love to see Wario make a comeback.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be, with Switch 2 and some of the other more, smaller niche series coming back, like the Famicom Detective Club and stuff like that. And they put Wario Land 4 on NSO recently, on the GP NSO.
Yeah.
There might be some interest. I mean, the Wii generation had that the Wario Land Shaky, which I guess is kind of like a Wario Land game. At least from what I saw, but I mean, I could see them.
It is, but the art style was, because
it was really nice.
That was amazing. Yeah,
it was a pretty game.
So I don't know. I mean, when you think about the Mario cast, what Waluigi and Daisy are the only ones that don't have a game.
They're just spin-off characters, basically. Spin-off of Mario Kart characters.
Yeah, they're extra.
That's
They need to
crazy.
do a Wario and Waluigi game for sure.
Yeah, and I guess you can say Toadette, but
they could throw in another Mario, something like that for sure.
Shout out,
but yeah,
go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying, like, if out of all these consoles, Game Boy is one I didn't have, like the original. Like, I have friends that had it with like all the attachments, the whole magnifying glass, the worm light. I got the pocket. Now, once again, this is like a trend for me at that age. I would have the console, but I owned maybe 1 or 2 games.
Yeah.
So when I got the pocket, that was like a lot of birthday money. Like I went because I had like the right amount of money to get the pocket, but at the same time, like I also wanted Pikachu. I mean, not Pikachu, but Pokemon Yellow.
Yeah.
And we, like, at the time, to get games, for us, you had to go to Sears, or you had to go to I think it was Sam's Club at the time was around. But the thing is, for you to get Pokemon Yellow, you had to get the instruction guide at Sam's Club. And I'm like, but I just want the game. I don't have enough money for both. Like, I just need one. Just need one. And luckily for me, what I ended up doing was a cousin of mine let me borrow his Pokemon Red. And then I had the pocket, and that's how I ended up playing Pokemon for the first time. Just a matter of borrowing and passing stuff around, because I could either get the console and borrow games, or get games and borrow consoles. And so it was a little bit easier to borrow games than consoles, because parents were like, nah, that's not leaving this house. Like, that's not happening. The game, you can sneak out of there. You can get out of there and pass it around.
That's actually, funny enough, Jack, that's actually ironic that you had a similar thing with playing the Pokemon games on Game Boy, because me growing up weren't allowed to have a Game Boy in the house. It was like I could only game during like summer or holidays or my birthday, stuff like that. So I had like cousins, or I had a couple cousins that had a Game Boy, and he had a Game Boy Pocket. It was like the gray one. He let me borrow that. It was like the late 90s or something like that, maybe like early 2000s. Oh, there's Trae Vito in the chat right there. There we go.
Me out because I forgot to send him the
link. But yeah, that's how I borrowed Pokemon Blue, and I borrowed Pokemon Silver, and that's how I played those. I never really beat Yellow or Crystal. I've only played them on not the same cousin. He had his cartridge, but he had a Game Boy Color, and so he wouldn't. I couldn't get the color. So I understand that because only certain games are on that. Well, I could have played Yellow on the Pocket, but I think at that point I was more like like Johto's the new thing. So younger kid me, that was how I was thinking.
Yeah. But see, that's the crazy. I never owned a Game Boy after that. I didn't have an Advance.
Because I didn't either. Funny enough,
it's not that I didn't want one. It's just like my parents and my grandparents were like, nah. Well, if it's one or the other, you're either gonna do these consoles or you're gonna do the handheld. And I chose the console every time. So when we talk about like going into color, I had a friend of mine in class. His name was Seth. He was sitting in front of me, and that's how I got introduced to Dragon Ball Z Super Warriors. And I was like, what is this? And he would play in class, finish his work, turn to the side, Game Boy Color all day.
Work's done, now time to get to real work.
And they would like put that away, and he would just like hide it so he could play it. But seeing like the Game Boy Advance, and then later the SP came out, and I'm like, they're cool. But if I'm playing Super Nintendo, and then eventually 64 came around, I'm choosing like the bigger consoles. And now as an adult going back, those are nasty libraries that I missed out on, because right now I'm at the end of Minish Cap for Zelda.
And that's one of them ones.
Like even for me, I told my wife the other day, I said I am not one of those that's ashamed to just have the strategy guide right here. And I'm not stressing nothing, and I'm going through this game to experience it. I'm not here to figure stuff out. I will read the study guide from IGN and move my way through. But I've been enjoying it so far. You know what I mean? Just even with the walkthrough, it's still a fun game. Otherwise, I'm sitting here looking like, how did y'all figure half of this stuff out? Because some of this stuff is not obvious.
A lot of free time, I guess.
It's got to be.
A lot of free time.
But those were some fun times, and I was one of the very lucky few that had a Game Gear also.
I had one too.
Very lucky, and that's solely because my stepdad, he was into Sega. So I remember when we got Sonic for the first time. We got it because it was a bundle deal of Sonic and the Sega Genesis would come together, and so we went to an actual store that's all they sold. Were Sega. So when you walked in there were like tube TVs everywhere stacked on top of each other, all just showing Sonic. Like that's all it showed was Sonic. So we got it. He let me play it for a little bit, and then fast forward, he ended up getting me the Game Gear. And I had like Sonic, and there was like, I think the little Robotnik's pinball machine game. And that was about it. The only other games I was able to play is when we went to Sears and they had like the baseball games. But between the batteries and the cost of that thing, my parents was like, nah, dude, like, this is too much.
Listen here. Because I think my story, I think I got the same. Like even with your Pokemon situation, like my mom didn't outright buy Pokemon. I had to get Pokemon from like a friend. And I think they moved. I think I told this story. They moved before I could give it back to them. So I just had their Pokemon.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So
you had to know somebody to really like keep up with Pokemon back then. Unless you were like actually an adult making real money by the time the first two gens came out. At least that's how it was. I was like, dang. I didn't have the handles to play. I had to get creative and figure out how to play some of them. But I was up and down Pokemon too. So
and even with the Game Gear, I don't even remember if there was a Game Gear commercial.
Oh yeah, I'm actually looking at one now because it was calling the Game Boy cream colored spinach screen.
Okay.
I either don't remember that or like
I never saw it either until now.
And I think I was like, Mom, I want a Game Boy. At that time, I had already had a Genesis, so we're now in Generation 4. Oh, let me backtrack. Before I tell this whole story. So during that time, Nintendo, saves the industry or whatever. And it puts on this law of conditions, if you would, on all third parties that they can only make so many games a year. So a lot of these game companies had to make like other game companies within themselves to be able to keep selling their games and stuff like that. That's why you had so many games and so many companies that went off from each other. So moving into the fourth generation, Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis were like the main two systems at that time. And Sega didn't have that rule, where Nintendo was still. So they lost a lot of third party through that, even though they still had a lot of third party to begin with, even still. But back to what I was saying, I had a Sega Genesis. And I had the Game Gear, and it's funny because the games that I had for the Sega Genesis, so there was my main games that I could remember, and I was like, I need Game Gear versions of those games, right?
Yeah.
So we had Sonic 2, which they had a Sonic on Game Gear. I had Echo the Dolphin,
Yep.
which they had a Game Gear version of that. I had Toxic Crusaders.
Heard that.
I had Toe Jam and Earl. You can't go.
Oh man,
Earl.
I still don't get that
funkiest
game
game.
to this day. Like, as much as I watch Toe Jam Earl, I'm like, what is the purpose? Like,
It was
Toe
just to be
Jam and
cool
Earl
with
is
him.
like, to me, I like to kind of joke and say Toe Jam and Earl is kind of like the first like rogue type game.
Yeah.
Because like every time you jump in those old school games, like you have your screen you go to kind of make your way off the plane or whatever. But I always notice that like the enemies will be slightly different. So obviously that's really old school way of doing it. But to look back and see how all the roguelike games are like now and everything, how super popular they are. So it's kind of funny too. Toe Jam and Earl's dope.
Yeah, so I like, and I think I had a Madden game as well, and even playing like I think just like you, Jack. Like I may have had the Game Gear a year, maybe 2 years, and my mom was like, "How many batteries did you run through?"
right.
That mug took 6 batteries
Man,
by
6.
itself.
6 of them big
It
ones.
didn't even last. Like you might be lucky to get 2 hours out of it. You know what I'm saying?
When
Like,
I found out about the adapter, they was like, nah, dude, we're not even playing that game. You be glued
Yeah.
to a wall for you to play it all day? Like,
Yeah.
nah, we cool.
It defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
It's like the Switch now. Half the time you
Right.
just play it at home on your couch or something,
Yeah.
which is comfy. I do like that. But hey,
It's like, and I think even like the battery adapters, they would die fairly quick. And they're
Very
like, oh,
quick.
your battery is dead? Well, that's what you got a wall plug for. So you got to be over there in the corner in the most inconspicuous spot. Like, Mom, I want to watch this TV too.
Mhm.
Yeah, but you want to play your game and it's around the corner. That's the only wall plug available. You in the middle of the hallway. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so that so I missed out on. I won't say I missed out on the Super Nintendo. My sister had a Super Nintendo, but she didn't have all the games. She had like Pink Panther, like some oddball games, so, like Pink Panther. She had Mario World, and I think that was it. Oh, and Killer Instinct. Like those three definitely don't go together. But
Not even
right.
close.
Very,
Not even
very-
close.
Yeah.
But my cousin is the one who I really like. I think that was like the real big. Okay, Nintendo is the way to go. Like he had Super Mario. He had Yoshi's Island, Mario Kart, Zelda, Link to the Past, Punch Out, Doomsday Warriors, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Desert. What is it called with the helicopter? Desert Strike.
Okay.
And I feel like there's one more in there. I always forget it. But like he had all those games. I'm like, yo, how come I don't have these on my Genesis? And he's like,
Yeah. Yep.
say Nintendo only. You see that sign, with the little hook arrow? Only for, you know what I'm saying? Only for Nintendo.
And see, and that's where I got
Oh,
lucky
yeah.
because I knew people that had both. So I'm looking back and forth because like my cousin's stepdad, he had a Sega Genesis and he would just go crazy over like listen to the sound of these games and the stuff isn't censored, blah
I
blah
do
blah.
have a
I
soft
didn't-
spot to the Genesis sounds, man.
Like I didn't care anything about that stuff. So whenever I saw Super Nintendo, I was like, all right, cool, we're gonna go this route. Now, similar to you, Sandstorm, your cousin was the one that introduced you to games. I had an uncle that was newly enlisted into the army. He would come home with duffel bags full of Super Nintendo games.
wow.
Like big green duffel bags. Like he'll have one duffel bag full of his dirty laundry so my grandmother could wash them, and then he had another one full of Super Nintendo cartridges. And you would literally, he would dump on you just like, I don't know what this is, but we're gonna try it. And then the nature of like quick gaming back then, because it wasn't like, oh, I had to wait for things to load and install. So if I turn it on, I'm like, no, turn it off, eject. All right, cool. Like, and it was just a rotation, but there were some things that I knew. So of course, Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3, and he had Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. He was the one that introduced me into Mortal Kombat. And then, that's when I later saw in the arcade. I saw the cartridges before I saw the arcade. And then, going into I call her my grandmother too, but she's on my cousin's father's side. She got us into understanding what Final Fantasy was because she had Mystic Quest. And she played that game over and over and over. And like that was her thing, like to kind of help with her arthritis. So when PlayStation came out and Final Fantasy 9 came out, she would literally play through Final Fantasy 9 with a strategy guide every day, and even when it got damaged, bought a brand new strategy guide. And she used to call the hotline, and I wonder like, who is she calling? They was like, oh, the hotline on the back of the magazines and stuff. Like she would call to get like advice for the walkthroughs. And so getting introduced into Super Nintendo, that was huge. Now the games I had sucked. Like the only good games we had was Super Mario World, and we had Donkey Kong Country 2. But as far as everything else, had to borrow Samurai Showdown. Everything else, for the most part, I rented. And then when it came down to, and also had like Bill Lambier's basketball game, like the little robotic. I hated that game. And Samurai Showdown, not Samurai Showdown, but Saturday Night Slam Masters. That was my go-to. So Saturday Night Slam Masters was my game. But yeah, Super Nintendo for me, it was cool because that's what I went to for Blockbuster 10 times over. But then that's when, we had an opportunity to start going into ownership of games when like the PS1 started getting ushered in, because instead of owning one outright, we rented them from Blockbuster and then rented the games or bought the games or just played the send out of the demo disc that we got coming through the mail. Like played it over and over again. I don't know how many times I played the first level of Crash before I played the actual Crash game.
How many times, man? Yeah, that was wild because they only let you get that one level.
Yeah, I had friends that had that demo disc too, so I know exactly what you're talking. We all just go through it and be like, we can go through it, you can finish it, you can go through fast.
That's all you can do, because I mean, those games I didn't know at the time were
expensive. For real. Same.
So it was one of those things where like, okay, when you have the problem of the game, then if you get the game, okay, now we need memory cards. Then that's when you lost my grandfather at that point. He was like, all right, I know you need games, but these games are costly. And then now you need
you ain't gonna keep getting money on something
right, like a memory card, like, and then God forbid when steering wheels came into play, like my uncle would have the steering wheel, and like I'm sitting there trying to do sales pitches, like, see, drive better on. And so he asked my uncle, like, is it really worth it? He's like, all the
hey.
Yes.
Yes or no answers.
But yeah, so I mean, not to go so far into it, but yeah, like Super Nintendo was my console for sure, like for the most games I had. But after that, of course, 64 was there, which my first games with 64 was Killer Instinct and Quest 64. And I think that's why I despise that game so much to this day, because it was like,
you hate the game.
I can't.
Was that game really that bad? I knew nothing. I never knew anything about that until I got older, and then
because I'm watching people play 64, and then like later on down the line, I'm seeing like finally eventually I got Diddy Kong Racing.
My goat right there.
But like then we got into the Mario parties where we're tearing up our thumb our pads in our hands, and I got Mystical Ninja at some point in time, which I still don't even know who even got us that game. But I hated Quest 64.
Come on,
hated that game.
Come on.
I can literally get the game right now and try to like fix this problem, to see like if it was just
Yeah.
me.
It's just
That
you.
does-
It's
but-
just you. I'm just telling you, it's just you.
All
That
right,
game
all
is
right.
amazing. It's okay. Look, listen. It has a lot of flaws. All right, but the game
Hmm.
You're not starting off good, sir. You're not starting off good.
The game
I've actually never
itself-
seen how this game looked at all. I've never looked it up or
You-
even.
You know what's ironic
I
about
know
it?
it's an RPG.
Very, 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 very few people know this. But my alias, like my game alias, is either Sandstorm McDowell or Zelse, Zelse.
Oh.
And my end game avatar is usually a person who's got white hair and white eyes, or black hair and white eye, like any of those combinations of like, you know, looking very wise in themselves. But my avatar actually came from that game. He is the second boss in the game, and actually speaking, he is probably one of the hardest, especially because he comes in so early. Pause.
Jesus.
Yeah, but he's
Ruthless.
but he's a dope character. Like, he's a dope boss, and out of all of them, he's the only one who doesn't like want to destroy the world or does it all for greed. Like, is for the sole purpose of his village, like that he needs to become stronger. Like, and he's dope. He's a dope character. So Zelse is who I am.
Sandstorm lore.
Yeah, right. Before we jump into the 64 and Super Nintendo piece, so during the Super Nintendo times, what happened? So Sega really sold really well.
Yeah.
Beating out the Super Nintendo. A lot of people chose to pick up Sega, and they also came with the Sega does with Nintendo.
Right. Yep.
And really pushed that. That was huge for them. And so Nintendo was kind of sticking with the whole idea of how many games could be sold on their system, and the developers like the previous model. And so they didn't sell as well. Granted, they still sell well for that time period.
Right.
And so we move into the PlayStation, Super Nintendo, PlayStation, N64, and Sega Saturn era.
Yeah.
And so
Don't forget about the Pippin.
No, we leave that alone.
Turbo
The little-
60 graphics 16 and stuff like
man.
that.
Yeah, we'll leave that
Turbo
alone.
graphics. Yeah.
So now that we're in this generation, I know Jack talked a little bit about it. Geronimo, what was your experience during the the fifth generation?
Good old 5th gen. So pretty much the 5th gen solidified me for a good long time as like a hardcore Nintendo kid or Nintendo person. Cause so like, what was it? I know it came out in 1996.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get my own until Christmas 97.
Okay.
I got an N64, and did we have 2 controllers? Yeah, we did. I got 2 controllers, and we got Mario 64 and Diddy Kong Racing. So that's like
Nice.
that's
That's how you
like
supposed to start off.
that's the launch right
Not
there.
Quest 64.
And Mario 64.
Oh, wow.
Oh no, not Quest.
Oh,
I'm gonna look up Quest 64 on the side after this.
Look it up.
And just have it on the side,
it
just
up.
to see how the gameplay looks. I just imagine the N64 aesthetic, but as an RPG. That's all I can imagine.
It's
Yeah,
great.
that's it.
It's great.
It's great.
Oh man, but yeah. So like let's say like mid 90s at that point, mid late going in. I had quite a few N64 games, and I have most of them still. It's in storage as well, but
Okay.
I did manage to get that new, or whenever it comes out, the new analog.
Mhm.
Whenever that does eventually come out, I'm gonna revisit.
That's
a bunch
still
of those.
not out yet?
No, this is the first time I'm ever like hopped in to pre-order an analog anything. Because I always
they
hear
tend
they
to
have
take
like
a while.
yeah, so I'm patient. I'm not like oh man, where is it? But you know, when it does get here, I'm gonna do a big video about that and everything that I have, and you know, all that stuff. It's not gonna be no digital foundry or anything like that. It'll just be like, yo, we got this new stuff. Let's see how the old games look, or my collection basically. But yeah, most of my collection really through that entire decade up until like I think the last N64 game I actually bought with my own money was Conker's Bad Fur Day in 2009, which was
Okay.
because that was always like the one game I looked at as a kid. Like, oh, I'm not supposed to want to play that. It's mature or adult only, whatever they call it back then. But yeah, most of it was of course, like, had the original Mario Party 2.
Mm-hmm.
I eventually got Mario Kart later. I had friends in the neighborhood that had. You never had it?
Nope.
I don't blame you though, because Diddy Kong Racing was so good.
Thank you.
It was really just I still think that Diddy Kong Racing holds up better than Mario Kart 64.
Yeah,
despite playing both of them roughly equally. I played Diddy Kong Racing more with my myself, or sometimes my dad would when I was younger, that was like one of the only couple of games he would try and play with me then. But I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, so I borrowed Banjo-Kazooie from another friend that had it.
Mm-hmm.
So I never really finished it then until a bit later. But I did get Banjo-Tooie, and I actually really liked that game. It's got that's like the first game that introduced me to what slowdown is, because there's some worlds later on. As soon as you walk in, you'd be like, 15, 20 frames. And again, I always say little kid logic, but little kid logic me was like, oh man, this lava level is so big, it must be causing the game to run slow. So
See, that is a perfect mindset to have.
Yeah.
Because nowadays it's like, it's
terrible. Why people have fans of this game now and all this stuff? Nobody likes Banjo now and all this weird stuff. Man, it's so funny looking back at that stuff, man. But as far as of course, N64 was the multiplayer console. That was the sleepover, the everybody on the couch with the 4 controllers.
Yep.
We had folks in the neighborhood. It was me and 3 other kids in the neighborhood. We all had N64s at the time in different games, but most of the multiplayer stuff was Star Fox 64, which was me plugging into the 4th slot, because that's how you choose Falco in the multiplayer. They had the characters tied to the slots. So Falco, plug my controller player for it. That's my boy. Of course, GoldenEye. I was trash at GoldenEye. I actually hated first-person shooters for a long time, just because I was salty. I was bad at GoldenEye, and I always hated Oddjob because he was so short, and I wasn't good at aiming down to shoot and all that stuff.
It would do this.
Yeah, it would always just be just in front of you, just in front of you. And then Oddjob is way below this. He's way below this. So I had to aim down. And I think I had to use one of the shoulder buttons and then aim down, and that was never easy. It's never easy. Of course, we had our Mario Party ones, and I witnessed some controllers getting broken. None of mine, fortunately.
Yep.
But I witnessed some N64 controller sticks getting broken due to rage from Mario Party.
Some limp sticks after
all. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That boy was floppy, super paws.
Give it up that. Oh man. And of course we have some of the I know some, especially some of those older folk, at least 30 up, whichever, that have memories of some of the third-party experiences of back then too, which fortunately I would say with the Switch we've gotten better with it as far as that's we had some of the wrestling games, WWE NWO Revenge.
Yeah.
Let me get my boy Booker T and we going in. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1. I really like Snowboard Kids. Well, really Snowboard Kids 2. I think at this point I would say Snowboard Kids 2 is kind of an underrated game. It's a really fun racing type of game.
It is.
I think it's really and that was the first one where you could if you did the short hop, and I think you did a trick with the C buttons, the angle C back or whatever, you can deflect most items backwards, but you had a really tight window. So you had to be good. It was actually kind of skilled with it too. I hope they bring that back on the end. So that'll be a great day. That'll be a great day. But yeah, a lot of great memories in the N64. I didn't even go on the full game of the rare games. I did mention Banjo earlier. I played a little bit of what's it called? Jet Force Gemini. It was in the Toys R Us demo. It was in the Toys R Us demo kiosk. And I was just confused because the game looked so dark. But I think it was just the TV that they had there. That CRT. They probably had some low brightness or whatever. I missed out on Blast Corps. I used to see that in Blockbusters growing up, on the shelves, but just never jumped for it. But it always looked cool to me. And I didn't really get into Perfect Dark until later as well, because I didn't have an expansion pack for my N64. So that's how I missed out on like Majora's Mask until later. Friend had Donkey Kong 64, of course, Donkey Kong 64, which I still say is a pretty fun game. I know it seems internet sentiment is kind of turning. I've known, maybe it's just me, but like over the past decade or so, people are kind of like, no, that game actually sucks now or whatever. It's tedious.
Yeah, it's going that
tedious
route
for sure. It has a lot of like multiple collectible things you got to do. But I think once you kind of, it is a lot.
outrageous.
No, like for real, it's like each game, like each Banjo game, and then that, and then Conker's Bad Fur Day, which not really collectible. It's more like a kind of a adventure-y.
That's not much of a collectathon as those.
Yeah,
other
you're really
two.
just kind of going through different areas, and it's kind of like homages to movies at that time and pop culture stuff. But yeah, N64 days was fantastic. That was the bulk of my 5th gen. I did expose to some PS1 because of course PS1 came out and was on and popping.
Yeah.
Right.
Some other friends had that. So what was it? I played some of Tony Hawk Pro Skater on there as well. Played a little bit of Crash 1. Actually, all the Crash. I always played bits and pieces of the Crash games. I never.
Of the Crash,
Never
never
finished.
finished.
I always like Crash 3 Ward because you can do the time traveling at the motorcycle level and stuff like that, and a little bit of Spyro as well, and Twisted Metal. So I missed out. I totally missed out on Final Fantasy until much later. So all that good stuff. But actually, one more thing on this. I don't know how I let this slip my mind. DK64 is my Quiz 64. That's what I'm saying.
Now, I wish Restream let me post comments because I was about to say, RJ, what?
I got you.
See, now, yeah, appreciate Sandstorm. Now I gotta go look up gameplay of that video after I'm done talking, which I'm almost done.
Is my Quest 64?
That's
RJ,
wild.
for real?
See, I'm not even gonna say it's a bad game. I'm gonna say it's a good game with tedious parts of it. That's how I call Donkey Kong 64.
Yeah,
it's like
Now I will admit, even though I'm a big fan of DK, I play Donkey Kong 64 now with mods, and they did a mod with the
I heard about that.
So you know how. So now you can do instant swap on the fly, opposed to finding a barrel to swap your character, because that was a freaking pain. But Quest,
and it would be on the most random times. You would get like 20 yellow bananas, and out of nowhere they start to turn red, and you're like, why? Like, there's not even a barrel around here. Why are we doing
suddenly
this?
that blueprint? Like, you can pick it up now. That would be amazing. There's been a lot of blueprints of like the enemies. You have to make the run trek back, and that is like, if they would ever do like a true remake of that or some style, like if for some. There's no way. Yeah, current day people be really mad about that for sure.
I will lose my mind. Ain't no way.
That would be wild for sure.
Vito. Oh, go ahead.
But real quick before we go into Vito,
bad.
Because I know the main premise was to kind of go into like how we got here.
Oh, Vito laugh anyway.
Oh dang.
What's crazy to me, and this is further down the line, but how Sega could have potentially kicked off the mess.
Hey, look. Yeah.
Because they were going the whole adults play Sega. Like kids play Nintendo, and now look at the 16-bit, 32-bit.
They got
fires every time.
What was the power in the Sega? The thing in the Sega?
I think the Saturn was.
It had
Saturn was 32-bit. Actually, yeah, Saturn's 32-bit.
Genesis had what was it? The thing that they called the buzzword.
They like had a special
blast process.
There you go. Yeah.
I think it's a bunch of nonsense.
And nobody knew what that meant, but they got away with it.
Like what we call it, snake oil stuff. Just like that's not a real thing, but it sounds real cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds good.
And Nintendo had what, the SFX chip? Is that what it is?
Chip, yeah.
Where it was
FX chip.
FX.
But you saw what that was, though. But you knew what that was.
Yeah, they showed the first Star Fox.
Yeah.
The very
Yeah.
first Star
You
Fox.
can clearly see
because
like
of that
there's no
shit.
other games that look like this. So this is one why the cartridge costs so freaking much. But then also two,
Yeah.
like that's why it was what it was.
Risky is
But
actually
for you to
correct.
say blast processor, I'm like, what am I?
Right.
So what's
Blast
showing me
processor.
this?
Blast processor. What?
Okay,
What is that?
Blast
the game still
processor.
look the same as the last game I had beforehand. I don't know what you're talking about.
That that actually. So oh yeah, that's right. So Saturn. I never got exposed. Well, okay, the only real exposure I think I saw of Saturn, there was like a really old like store. They're super like they're super out of business. It was called Media Play. They're kind of like a
Yeah.
book store, CD store, which sounds crazy to say now. But and they also had games they sold too. And I remember they had like a little video preview thing of I thought it was a Sega Saturn because they showed like Sonic, but in 3D, but it didn't look like a real game to
But
me.
that's what killed them because
Yeah,
you really
that's
couldn't tell the
actually it.
difference. You couldn't
I
tell the
wanted the
difference.
Dreamcast super bad. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's popular misconception.
Yeah.
It was definitely steps to get there. Dreamcast was like the tip of the iceberg.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
they took
Yeah.
major steps together. Dreamcast could have been the savior, but
Dreamcast was
Right.
fire though.
but in all honesty, like if we want to go into it, but Sega, for me, when I got my Master System, then you see Sega Genesis pop up, then you see Sega 32X and CDs and all.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I was
what is
confused,
this?
too.
I never
Yeah.
knew the
'Cause I-
32X was until
because I didn't know
YouTube
what the
era.
32X was. We had a Sega in the house, and then once again, my grandpa come home from work, and this guy gives him a whole Sega CD. So I'm like, what am I supposed to do with
Wow.
this? He was like, oh, you put the Sega Genesis on top of it, and they talk to each other. I'm like, what? And so, and he gave us some games, and the games were weird. Like I played them because like they were there, but the one game I played, I don't even remember the name, and I want to look it up, but it was kind of like this detective game where you had to like go and solve crimes within the game, but they confused everybody at that point. And then not to mention, like you mentioned Saturn, I didn't even know Saturn was a thing. So then by the time I found out what Saturn was, Dreamcast was already out. So I'm like, huh? Like what happened here?
Yeah.
Weird, right? It's weird. Yeah, back then I just knew about Sega Genesis. I
Mhm.
only knew about Sega CD because I had another cousin. He had Sonic CD. I played it once. The actual CD on PC though, and I was like, "Why is it called Sonic CD?" And they said, "Oh, there was like a CD. We call it a CD player back then. You can put on the side of Genesis called they call it the Sega CD." And I was like, "Oh, Sonic CD, like Mario 64, Nintendo 64." That was like my thinking of it. But once the Dreamcast got shown later, and of course Sonic Adventure and everything, that was where I was like, okay, that's actually crazy. But didn't know that, because of the things they did before leading up to it, how they rushed the 32X. Well, at least here it seems like, I want to say rushed the Saturn, but they released the Saturn in a poor way.
Very much
That
so.
didn't do them any favors, and then it just kind of snowballed to how the Dreamcast came. And then PlayStation 2 rose up, and the rest of the history there. But we'll get to that for sure.
Right.
Yeah. So RJ said, also believe blast processor with the SSD for Sega. Absolutely. I mean, the Sonic games, especially 2 and 3 Knuckles, is what they wanted to show off. Also, wasn't the CPU better in the SNES? I believe actually both CPU and GPU were better. And the SNES, it was a more powerful system. But yeah, for me, so I'm pretty sure I got the N64 first. Wait, which one came out the first? PlayStation or the N64?
I think the 64 came out. No, because the 64 came out in what, 96, 97?
Yeah,
No,
96. Yeah.
And then I believe the PlayStation came out in 97, or was it 95?
I think
It might have been 95.
Actually.
95, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta go into
Ooh, Kmart. Yeah.
Well, I remember Kmart.
94.
Mhm.
It came out.
Kmart held it down.
It
Oh,
came out
94.
2 years before. Yep, the
Yep,
original.
oh, it was
Well,
right.
in Japan, 94. So,
Oh yeah, okay, that's right.
And when they come to US in 95?
I believe 95.
That makes sense. That's why Sony celebrated their thing last year with the little
Mhm.
games. That's
Mhm.
right. That's right. Okay.
So,
94. Yeah.
yep, the release date 1994.
Saturn was first, then PS1, then later N64. Okay, cool.
So
Thank you.
okay, so originally, so let me take that back then. The first system I actually got was the PlayStation. And I had Tomba, which is crazy because that game is like $800 now, which makes me feel bad that I even sold that game in the first place. I had this game called DEFCON 5, and I had what's the dinosaur game? Primal. Yeah.
Like with the fighting dinosaurs?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Primal.
Yeah, that I had that game, and oh man, like that game was my fire. It was dope. I had a lot of fun. Oh, and I had NBA Jam. I forgot about that.
Oh yeah.
And those games were so much fun. That was the first time the second time that I ever encountered Dragon Ball, in the form of Dragon Ball GT. But the first time that I ever played a Dragon Ball game, and that blew my mind, because like I had just known about Dragon Ball. They were talking about Super Saiyan, but then playing that game, I'm like, Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan's got to be the strongest. Wait, but this is Super Vegeta. So it can't be like stronger than like Super Saiyan, because like Super Saiyan's got to be. Wait a minute, Super Saiyan 4. And there's a Vegito. Is that like is this like a new bad guy? Vegito's a new bad guy, like fusion. None of that stuff. We didn't know about any of that stuff. Cell was in it. Boo was in it. Like it just threw me for a loop. But the PlayStation got boring to me. Like me and my cousins, like we all seemed to around like get either the same system or the same system in games. And so I had those games. My cousins had Smurf Racing, which was the bomb.
Oh God, really?
Yeah, it was actually surprisingly good. They had Legend of Dragoon, and they all three of them had their own PlayStations.
Wow.
There's four of them. No, all four of them had their own all three of them, because the daughter was still too young to play games. So all three of them had their own PlayStations. They all had Legend of Dragoon. One of them had Smurf Racing. One of them had Harry Potter. And then my cousin had the oldest cousin had Parasite Eve, because that was the one that came with the demo for Xenogears.
Yep.
Oh wow. That's
Yep,
dope.
I remember that one.
Yeah. So I would play the mess out of their stuff, but eventually that stuff got boring, and so in '96, that's how fast it was. In '96, the 64 came out, and I got the 64 early, or when it was supposed to come out, and got Mario, Pilot Wings, and Empire Strikes Back. Shadows of the Empire. Shadows of the Empire blew my mind. That first level with the Hoth and all that, I was like, this game is real. Like, I'm playing the real game. I'm taking my system over to friends' houses and like play this first level, because this level is real. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is exactly like the movie. If you play it in retrospect, you're like, this is nothing like the movie. But
right.
Our imaginations ran wild back then.
Right. It was all real.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think at that point I stopped. I didn't really have too many PlayStation games because I wasn't really interested. Right. The 64 games like came and came and came. Pause. Yes. Did you need something?
Yes.
What?
LeBron James' younger son Bryce, he's a basketball player too. He picked up an Ohio State offer. I can't.
He did? Oh, nice.
That's not nice. We're from Michigan.
Nice.
We don't
Hey,
support.
sir.
We don't support nothing Ohio.
Bryce about to show out in Ohio and then come and take over from Bronny.
We listen. He gonna lose all his games against Michigan. I'm just telling you that right now, and they're gonna be wondering how come I can't beat this team, because it's Michigan. But anyway, so yeah, we got a crazy. We had a crazy amount of games. We got the Smash Brothers, from the Pokemon Stadiums to Wave Race, 1080.
Oh, Wave Race!
Yeah,
Mike Baker at Wave Race.
Right, bangers, man, bangers on
that
bangers.
That game, man, that game still holds up. And playing on the NSO, I've been like, these wave physics and stuff, it is still really good.
Beyond anything we're going through even right now. Right. We had Rogue Squadron. We had, of course, like you said, all the retro games were in there. One of the games that's not a retro game, but I feel like they did a really good job. The World Is Not Enough. I love that game. Clay Fighters. That was my first South Park game.
Oh yeah, I played that horrible South Park game on the 64.
Yeah.
I had other cousins that lived down in Florida. They the only time I really played anything on their N64, they had that South Park game and with the snowballs, and that's all I have to say. That's all I really have to say. If you know,
I remember that.
know.
I remember that vividly.
That
The snowballs and them turkeys.
Yeah, the turkeys.
The turkeys.
What a wild game that was.
So my experience is actually exact opposite of Jack. Jack got that game put on him, but I actually my dad had an N64. My dad doesn't play games, but I have 3 stepsisters, and so he got it for them. Plus my nephew lived over there, and so he had the 64. And the only 2 games that they had was Chameleon Twist and Quest 64. And so when I would go over there, I would never bring my own games. I would just go over there and try whatever games they had, which was just those 2 games. Oh, and eventually they got Banjo-Kazooie. But so I played Quest 64 and get to the first area, and they never had a save pack. So, automatically you wasn't saving, right? Ooh. So every time I go over there, I'd restart. And I was like, eventually I was like, you know what? Do my sisters care if I just take this game? Because they probably not gonna play it anyway.
Right.
So I took it and had my own save pack and played through it. Was like, this game is great. It's not the greatest game, but this game is great. I am thoroughly enjoying it. That's why my experience is different than Jack's. So, but yeah, during this generation, PlayStation's inception came out of Nintendo's worry because all the other CD-styled game systems weren't really working out. So to the point where they were going to have an add-on for the Super Nintendo CD version as well. So it would have been just like the Sega CD. In retrospect, I actually think that would have helped Sega out way more than them leaving. So like it was kind of like a twofold piece of like, PlayStation wouldn't have been here, but it would have been still Nintendo and Sega, and there would have been 2 CD add-ons for both of those systems. Yeah, exactly. And it would have definitely helped the mind share for people like, okay, I need an add-on for this. But at the last minute, it sounds like Sony both wanted too much.
Yeah, they wanted to own some of the stuff that was coming out, and like, nah, dude. Like, and Nintendo was already like, So Nintendo ended up pulling back and linking up with Philips for. So anyway, that was horrible. But before you go for Sandstorm, because I see everybody mentioning Snatcher was the game that I was describing. No, it's called Rise of the Dragon. I found it earlier, but it was crazy because somebody did like a collection of games that were good games, and that was the one game he forgot to put the freaking name up for. So I had to go digging deeper for it. But it's called Rise of the Dragon. It's a point and click like mystery game. But that was the game I played the heck out that game. That game was crazy for a kid to play. Yeah, that I don't know why my grandfather let me play that game. But continue. Yeah.
Okay, so after we came out of the 64 era, Sony did phenomenally well for their first system. And so we moved into and they were touting graphics at that time too. I just want that to be known.
Graphics.
And so we moved into the 6th generation.
Best generation in gaming.
Which I was about to say. A lot of people feel like this is the best generation of gaming of all time.
Yes, sir.
Because quirkiness was not, there was no short of quirkiness in games and ideas and thoughts that came out. And so this was the prime time. Oh, let me back up. So Sega had Sega Saturn as well, And
Yep.
as Jack and Geronimo kind of alluded, Sega tried to do the add-on for the Sega CD, and then they added the Mushroom, which is also known as the 32X.
32X.
Mushroom. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
It
onto
is.
the Genesis,
gross.
and it didn't work, and so they moved on to the Sega Saturn. I have experienced the Saturn once, and it actually stuck with me with a particular game, and this game no longer exists. But the last time we got it was actually on the Wii, which was dang, and now it just slipped my mind. With the clown, what's his name?
Clown.
With Dreams, and
Nice.
Nights.
Nice.
Nights
Yeah.
in the Dreams.
Yes, Nights. I remember going to Toys R Us and playing that demo, and then my cousin, shout outs to FJ, actually had that in Ridge Racer, and so I got to see those both, and like graphics wise, they were blowing both of those systems out of the water.
Yeah.
And but like Nights just was like, I was like, what is this game? This is so sweet. But unfortunately, the Saturn only lasted a year. So I did ask my mom,
Right.
could I get a Saturn? But the following, she's like, maybe next year. And that following year, it was gone.
There was never a Saturn here. What do you mean?
Now, why'd you ask me for something that don't exist? Like, what's
Right. It never existed.
Oh man.
And so we move on to shout outs to Majora's Mask, one of the greatest games of all time too.
Oh,
that
yeah.
game
Oh, yeah.
came out at the tail end of the
Never-
N64's life.
Never getting
so,
a Zelda like that again.
yes, and unfortunately so.
Unfortunately.
So we move into the next generation, which is the sixth generation, which is the purple lunchbox, i.e. the GameCube.
Man.
I was the GameCube defender. That for me was like a lot of my friends either went to PlayStation 2. Well, no, one person had a second Dreamcast, and then that happened, and then they got an Xbox, and then everyone else got PlayStation 2s. I was the sole GameCube person for a good minute.
See, I couldn't get a GameCube because when everything popped off, I ended up getting a PS2 because we didn't even hear about the GameCube.
Wow.
So PS2, because our household had gone from 64, jumped into PS1. So
Hold on,
we
pause,
went into
hold on.
PS2.
Vito, are you in?
Hello?
Are you in? Okay, Vito's in.
Third
Okay.
time's a charm. Let's
Vito's
go.
in.
There you go.
Y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You
Yeah.
alive and popping?
Yep.
You say you can hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
All right, cool. What up,
Okay.
everybody?
What's
What
good?
up?
Hold on, Jack. Let Vito get in his. I think we just jumped into the GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Sega Saturn / Xbox generation. I don't know if you go disappear again. So real quickly, get it. Throw in your experience of that generation.
You said the GameCube, Xbox, PlayStation 2, or
Yep.
one?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, PlayStation 2. Okay. Yeah. So can y'all hear me?
Yep.
All right. So
Yep.
it was I end up getting, let me see. That generation, let me see. Sandstorm tricked me into getting a
Trick.
GameCube. We kept calling it Nintendo Dolphin, so I thought that
The
sounded cool.
Nintendo Dolphin. Yeah.
So like I tricked my grandmother into trying to get one for me at the Sam's Club one time. Put it in her cart, said it's only like $200. I mean, it ain't nothing. You know what I'm saying? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you got it.
Oh,
You know what I
my
mean? She had it. So she was about to get it, and then my granddad came out of nowhere hating, and he was like, nah. So little did I know, somebody else bought it for me, and they actually had the black joint, because I actually had picked up the silver joint.
Okay.
So I had to put that silver one back, but later on I got the black one. When I got the black one, that was like my only system for a while.
Okay.
So, like, gaming at that time, of course, was like Nintendo exclusives. On top of that, there was a lot of third parties, things of that nature. I played, I had Gun, that game Gun, or
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
Okay.
Revolvers on the cover.
Yeah. I had some like off the wall stuff like Godzilla Fighters or something like that.
I remember Godzilla. I remember you bringing that over.
Yeah. I had the of course I had what was it, Melee? Yeah, was that Melee?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Melee.
Oh
Melee.
yeah, the OG.
Yeah.
Yup.
I had Mario Kart. I think I had tennis for a minute, then I lost it somehow. Didn't own a Pokemon game.
Oh yeah, that's right. You just
Me
got
either.
introduced into playing
My
the
cousin
Pokemon
did.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, actually, before then, I mean, with 64, I played Stadium.
Of course, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I mean, it was barely like I rarely played it. Plus, like when it came down to my like Game Boy or whatever like that, I only had Yoshi. So you know what I'm saying. So then I think when I had a Game Boy Color, I had another game I can't think of right now. You know what's funny? I actually found my Game Boy the other day. That's what's crazy.
That's dope.
That is
Okay.
crazy. Yeah. But I don't know if it turns on because I tried to put some new batteries in there, and I don't think it. Yeah.
If it ain't turn on, it ain't turning on.
Nah.
Yeah. If the batteries ain't helping it turn on, it's something else for sure.
Yeah. But no, I had a lime green joint on that one. But anyway, back to the game. So I had the GameCube for the longest time. So basically, let me see, maybe I want to say about maybe a year later, I ended up getting a PlayStation 2, the Slim. So when I got that, I was getting I had like a little pizza job. I think at the time. I don't know what I had actually. Somehow I was getting some type of allowance.
Money was appearing.
Yeah,
It was happening.
Money was just enough to be able to go get used games at GameStop or at the time I think it was something else. But I started getting like weird Blockbuster. That's what it was. Blockbuster.
No, Blockbuster.
Because they were selling games.
Blockbuster was essential for me growing up.
Yes, sir. Yep, that a movie gallery.
Yeah.
Them weekend rentals.
Yes, sir.
Rent two, get one. Rent one, get one. Rental free.
Yep.
Did y'all have a family video too?
No, I had a video warehouse.
Okay.
Hey, that's
Blockbuster
exclusive
is
to,
all
that's
down
exclusive. Family video exclusive to the Midwest.
Okay.
No, that makes
There-
sense. Yeah,
There's a lot of
I'm
stuff
grocery
that's like exclusive
Yeah.
to the Midwest that other people didn't get that we had growing up or whatever. But definitely though, like how Blockbuster would have like the games for rent, but then like they had them for sale. Stuff like that on the side or the used joints that they were like, oh yeah, no, I guess this ain't really. We got too many copies. Nobody's really renting this. So I used to get those. Somehow I was doing that. So I was getting like weird games like the AM1 joints. And
Oh wow!
I remember you having that too.
People don't remember those games. No.
Yeah,
Hollywood Video. Yep, Hollywood Video too.
Stuff. And then at the time, I had a stepdad or a whatever you want to call it. He was from Philadelphia, right? So we used to visit Philadelphia like all the time and stuff. And I remember going up there and we used to I got that what was it? Was it that Vin Diesel spy game?
Oh, Spy.
Exactly what you
Is
talking
that
about.
2 or
That
3?
does sound familiar.
Ew.
I forgot which one it was.
Because it was like Spy Hunter. It was Spy Hunter, wasn't it?
Yeah.
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 Because it was after like the first or second one, and like they were like featuring Vin Diesel.
Yeah. One of them had the Rock in it, I believe.
Jeez.
Yeah, I think that was 2. So 3 must have had. Yeah.
So I mean, I was getting like oddball games like that. The MTV producer joint. Remember me?
Yeah.
We was going ham off of that. Let me see what else I had. Oh, of course, I had the God of Wars. All the 1s and 2. What else was that? I don't know, but anyway, during that time, that was like, I mean, Xbox was out. People was talking about Halo. Sports games like Showtime, well not Showtime, but NBA Street was like popping real.
Yep.
Yep. NBA Street.
Y'all went fooling with the Kobe courtside?
Another cousin that had was the NBA Ballers.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hey,
my
Yeah, NBA Ballers. And I was
God.
like, what?
Oh,
I thought it was like bootleg NBA Street
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you
but
know you broke when you got ballers.
I was
hey,
like,
look,
what?
hey, look, ballers. You can get your crib. You can get the
That's true.
jewels.
Yo,
you can
that's
do
true.
hey,
True. That's true. It was actually pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. But I ended up getting like just a lot of sports games at that time. I think that for me at least, I was doing the action adventures, but I really wasn't getting into like a lot of these other games until like the next generation. You know what I'm saying? But but what's crazy is I was getting into these other games as I had the other generation, but I would buy it I'll buy like off the wall stuff that like Final Fantasies and things that like just stuff that I missed on the PlayStation 2 or
Right.
whatever, that I didn't play, that I was like, I ain't playing that. You know what I'm saying? I'll start experimenting with that later on. You know what I'm saying? Like messing with just all types of stuff. So like GameStop actually became like I used to work at this pet place, right? And we didn't do nothing in there. Like there was like I worked in this one spot called Doggy Daycare. When you watch these dogs all day, they're in this room. So all that I do is just kind of play with them a little bit. But I had a whole setup in there, right? I had like my TV in there, my PlayStation 2 in there. Then I used to go to GameStop and like at lunchtime, and like I literally had so many PlayStation 2 games later on in life. It wasn't even funny. It was to the point where like even going through like stuff today, like if I'm sitting up here trying to move stuff around and just go through stuff, I'm like, oh snap, where all these games come from? Like,
yeah.
So so basically like that's my experience with that generation. Really is really mainly between the GameCube and that PlayStation 2. But for me, honestly, it was one of the best gaming experiences that I had. Plus, on top of it, like I said, I was going back in time later on as well. So
yeah,
that attests to how great these games were, especially playing Gun after playing Red Dead
Yes.
on 360 or whatever. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, these games right now, I'm like, that GameCube was not that far off from that Red Dead that was on that 360.
It wasn't far.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, man, that showed a lot, and honestly, I was like, that generation might have been the best. Might have been the best of all time. Like just going back in time with stuff. I mean, just the fact that I never seen the areola shown on video games before, and here I am with God of War, the first opening scene
off rip.
Everywhere. I was like, oh snap! Like I'm lucky to see like some boobs jiggle on the fighting game. You play this game.
Hey, Dead or
Alive.
Alive.
I'm like, Kratos,
Dead or Alive, BMX, Triple X, all them games, they were crazy.
We have the power to do anything now.
Yeah.
Well, that's what
We're
you
gonna show
mean
some skin.
Okay.
I got a shout out to that Bloody Roar.
Man. Bloody Roar is in like it's stuck, man. That needs to come back. Bloody Roar Primal Fury, man, that will go so hard like the kind of cult fighting game community now. Man, that will go so hard. Just transform into all the monsters.
Yeah.
Shout out to Buckaroo. Bring my boy Buckaroo to Smash.
Buckaroo. That'll be a dope get. That'd be a dope get. Man.
All right, Jack. So your thoughts.
So I always put this as the best generation for multiple reasons. Gaming wise, creativity, and this was the first time where I got my hands on everything, even handheld included. So now, like I was saying in the beginning, I didn't get a GameCube. Like we heard about GameCube like well after the fact. So my younger cousin, he got a GameCube. So the way we finally saw and heard about a GameCube, I already had a PS2, but we went to GameStop, and this was the time GameStop was advertising like those attached TVs that you could put on the consoles. So they had
Yeah.
the TV on the GameCube and was flipped up,
I remember
and it was
seeing
playing
that.
WrestleMania, the WrestleMania game on there.
Oh,
So when we sitting there watching, I was like, "Yo, what is this?" They was like, "Oh, this is the new WrestleMania joint on GameCube." Mind you, we had just come off of No Mercy, so I'm like, "Okay, well, is this No Mercy Light?" He was like, the guy at GameStop was like, "Nah, it ain't No Mercy Light, but you know, it's a wrestling game on the GameCube and it's exclusive because they had, you know, the little tie-in there."
Rumble.
So whenever I got into this generation, I started off with PS2. Then for me with Dreamcast, I didn't know about Dreamcast dying out with all of like the pirating and all that good stuff. So my Christmas had just went through. I was a advocate when it went to the pawn shop that was down the street. Like I would stay in that pawn shop. So my grandfather took me down to the pawn shop and I bought my Dreamcast there. And the 2 games I picked up, and at that time I did not know they would ever be this expensive. I picked up Ready to Rumble Round 2, and I picked up Marvel's Capcom 2.
Oh yeah, those
I literally
those are among my favorites from back then.
MVC2 is litty.
Bro, now the crazy thing is, didn't know anything about these games per se. I knew about Ready to Rumble because I had played the Sin out of demo disc, but I didn't know about MVC2. But the thing is, both of them were in their jewel cases and they had black covers. That look crazy. They look sick. So I was like, I'm gonna pick these up. So I got those, and then that's when, like, I don't even know how we got into it, but this guy at school just started showing up like, "Yo, you got a Dreamcast?" Yeah. He was like, "Hey, look, I'll trade you one of your games for 2 games." I'm like, why would you do that? This was my introduction into pirated games. So what he was doing was he would trade you a real game for 2 pirated games of your choice. So that's how I got into NBA 2K2, because I had a homeboy that had a Dreamcast, so he had NBA 2K, NHL 2K. He got like the Sega Sports bundle with the black Dreamcast. I played it, but I didn't have it. So whenever he got this, I'm like, "Oh, you got 2K2, and then also I got 18-wheeler." So I didn't know what 18-wheeler was, but he was like, that was what come together. I played the Sin at 18-wheeler, but also like 2K2 was my joint right there. So I just continued that process with him. And that's how I got introduced to so many Dreamcast games, because Dreamcast was phasing out. So it's like, okay, it's phasing out. You couldn't really get the games. And then at this time, I had just moved with my mom to Augusta, Georgia. So she had just gotten stationed in Augusta, Georgia. And that's when I got introduced to flea markets. Went to a flea market. This guy had a TV along with a binder full like list of games, of Dreamcast games. And he would have them playing on the thing, so that way you could test the games to make sure they were good before you took them home.
Smart.
And so, I mean, and these games were like $5 a pop. Like he was selling them for little to nothing. And when I tell you I cleaned up. as a kid, like I cleaned up. So that was like my introduction into Dreamcast, and loving like Crazy Taxi, Ready to Rumble, Power Stone, Skies of Arcadia, like I said, 18-wheeler, getting into the virtual tennis games, NBA 2K, NHL 2K, NFL 2K, like getting into all of the games that is Dreamcast. And then so when it came down to the PS2, the big issue with the PS2 was, once again, this whole memory card crap. So it was it was really like becoming a problem because of how expensive these 8 megabyte freaking memory cards were, and you didn't want to get the Mad Cats ones, and it was a big mess. So what we did was we stayed off of the memory cards for a while, and the first game that I remember us completing was Kingdom Hearts. And we did it as a group.
That'd be brutal.
Started off playing the game. And this is the summertime, by the way, so we ain't got to go to school. So me and my cousin, we sitting there, we chilling, we in the game room, so nobody comes in there to watch TV, so it's just strictly a game room. So I start playing first. I make it a certain while, then I pass it him so I can go eat, get something to drink, come back, swap out, and then like if it gets too late, hey, look, I'm finna take a nap. Wake me up after you do your spin and you get tired, and I wake up and we finish the game within like 24, like the first 24 hours, because we just swapped. But getting into PS2 was, the Def Jams, the NBA Lives, getting into Shut Your Mouth and Here Comes the Pain. To me, that was the true evolution of No Mercy. And like, okay, we going from No Mercy to this. Like, yeah, that's the big move. Getting into you know, the Need for Speeds, Midnight Clubs. Like, we were going heavy with everything that dropped. So it was like anything you picked up wasn't a miss. And that's where I was like, I didn't really have to dig deep into anything. But at this time, I will say a lot of my suggestions or the games I got put on, even though people don't like them now, G4 TV put me on. So
yeah, that's Cinematech. I saw a lot of games through there.
Like a lot of games through there, because we didn't do the magazines. So it was like, all right, cool. G4 TV was the thing we just sit up and watch. And so it was like, outside of them showing 1,000 World War games, it was like, all right, this one game might pop up here and there. And Adam Sessler was the one that convinced me to pick up Kingdom Hearts, because I had seen Kingdom Hearts advertised to no end on Disney. Like, they was like, oh, it's this boy with a Keyblade and he's running around Goofy and Donald. I was like,
everybody was pushing it hard back then. I remember that kind of review, right?
Pushing it hard. So then that's when I was like, man, I'm not playing a game. I'm not playing a Disney game. And then Adam Sessler was like, you know what? Don't sleep on this. So I was like, all right, cool. I'll go cop it. And so that's where like I really started getting into reviews. And it led me to Persona 3 FES. It led me into, like, we went heavy on the Guitar Hero scene. Like, Guitar Hero scene was disgusting. Like, that was
during that truly an era. Truly an era. Like, they tried it a couple times the past several years, but back then
I tell my kids all the time, I was like, this is just something that can't be replicated. Like, when I tell you, staying over at people's houses, just staying up at ungodly hours of the night, just really trying to do hard mode. And it's like, okay, the buttons are giving out. Like, we just, and then, like, God forgive me, you know, he's already forgiven me for this. But whenever these controllers used to go out, GameStop used to have like new controllers, like new guitars hanging in the front of like their counter. So our strums, like the thing would disconnect because they were two pieces. We would take like our one piece out, stick it in our jackets, go in there, swap them bad boys out, and then take home the new one. So that way we would have like some fresh buttons to play on Guitar Hero, because we were committed. You hear me? Because that was also the PC era that I got introduced to. Like, granted, I had done like Sims and Sims 2 before then, and then like some point and click games. But this is where we started getting introduced to Mugen and you know, doing like the downloadable songs on Guitar Hero on the PC side. So it was like we got into everything. But then when it came down to GameCube, it was Beautiful Joe. It was Double Dash. What else am I missing? We played like the WrestleMania games. We got into a handful. Like GameCube, I didn't get into until I got older, because it was really PS2. And my introduction into Xbox was solely because somebody broke into our house and stole my PS2. So at the time we were staying on post, and luckily, you know, my mom did the report or whatever, and so they refunded us our money. So now everything, she made a list of CDs, DVDs, the whole 9 yards. And I was like, we went to the store to like get everything back. And I told her, I was like, you know what? I don't want the PlayStation. I want to try this Xbox I'm hearing about. And I had tried the Xbox at a friend of mine's house, and that thing was crazy to me. Like, it was ridiculous. And my first game I got was NCAA March Madness with Carmelo on the cover.
Yeah, I remember that one. Oh yeah,
so
that one.
That was my first introduction in. And then, you know, they had Fusion Frenzy that I played, and Halo. And then that's when I started realizing that, okay, because of what's in this Xbox, some games operate a little bit better. Granted, I hated the controller with the black and white buttons. Like, I could not stand that.
That
but
was awkward.
The Duke was awful. But then when they brought out the S controller, I was like, all right, cool. But then that had memory cards. And then when we started getting into like NFL 2K5, like later on down the line, or yeah, 2K5 down the line, the halftime shows were videos, but PS2 just had screenshots. So I was like, okay, so now we need to convert everything over here to this Xbox, because it's got some horsepower, it's got a hard drive, so it can do some stuff. Right. And that's when we start realizing, okay, you know, there were like a little bit different things you can do here. You can like play DVDs here and do all this other stuff. So it was pretty cool, like getting into everything. And the Game Boy Advance was nuts at that time. Like I didn't get to get fully into that genre of like Game Boy Advance, or even doing the whole link cable system between Game Boy Advance and GameCube. But I did get a chance to experience the Game Boy Player on the GameCube, which was like that was ahead of his time. I feel like that was crazy to be able to play those games. But the controller, I think for me, GameCube had the best controller. For me, I love damn near all the PS2's games, like even with God of War. That was my introduction into the God of War trilogy. Final Fantasy, I love 10. Like 10 is still my favorite to this day. Like 10-2 was cool. Like I beat 10-2, but 10 is still my favorite to this day. But then, with Xbox, I never really like got into Halo like that. But my go-to game at that time was Jade Empire, and then also Project Gotham Racing, were like my go-to. So that was before Forza. But yeah, G4 TV, and I started creeping into IGN at that time because we still had dial-up. We hadn't gotten into like the broadband yet. So like watching reviews go, I was like, yeah, we're not about to do this.
Early 2000s were a struggle. The internet,
sir. But yeah, I mean, honestly, that was like a top generation for me because they really were experimenting. I mean, whether, like I said, the Guitar Hero games, the RPGs, the adventure games, the platformers, it was all there, and you legitimately saw Xbox, PlayStation, Sega, and Nintendo all doing something different. And that, I feel like that was the last generation we saw that. Because that's right after that generation, PlayStation started doing what Xbox was doing. And that's why I feel like it started going downhill.
The beginning of the end of PlayStation's own ideas.
Just trying to standardize everything.
Too
similar. It's just which controller you're using.
There you go. Or where was your friends? That's
where
it was.
That's why I went the infamous Xbox 360 to PS4 jump for me. That was it. That was it. Man.
So what about you, Geronimo?
Man, 6th gen for me it's all over the place. But like I said earlier, pretty much from that time, pretty much that entire like decade, even going to some of like 7th gen for a while, I pretty much had a GameCube that whole time. Like from like that's one of, I think, not thinking about the GameCube, that was the one, like the first of 2 consoles I ever got like actual like launch time. Like, I got that, Luigi's Mansion, and then Smash Brothers Melee. That holiday 2001. So it was like, that back then, I think I was like, I was a preteen then, for context, and I was reading a lot of the game magazines. So like, what was it? Nintendo Power, Game Pro, they were just hyping up like, the Xbox versus the GameCube. That's when I first became aware of like specs. I was reading them and I'm like, these numbers are different, but this one has Mario and that one has PlayStation. That one has like Crash or whatever. That just back then. But just a little bit before that though, with Dreamcast, most of my Dreamcast exposure was like one. I only know 2 people growing up that had a Dreamcast. A friend that lived farther down the street from me, and he was like the only one in the neighborhood that had one. And then later on, like 2002 maybe, I want to say, or 1-2, I met another cousin. He had a Dreamcast. But between those, that's how I got put on to like, well, of course, Sonic Adventure came out, and were crazy. But like, that's when you start seeing like more of those 5th gen making 6th gen ports like Tony Hawk Pro Skater. I mean, outside of the graphics being nice, you can just tell they add like some more animations and everything, grinding or finishing your challenges.
Pro Skater 3 was a game.
I'm saying.
2 was still mine. 2 was still mine, man. I still, before the Underground series, but that 2 was still mine.
2's dope. What was the other ones I played on there? Rayman 2.
I
played a little bit of Rayman 2. My cousin, he didn't have the full game. He originally had Rayman 2 on the PlayStation 1, and I had it on N64. That was they had a commercial back then that sold me immediately. So I asked for it for Christmas, and I was fortunately able to get it back then. But I did not have a controller pack, so it took me a while to beat that game. It's a decently long game for an adventure game, but I played some of the Dreamcast version of it, and I was like, yo, this is really like this, like the Dream. I thought like, yo, Dreamcast was the console. It was And then they had Race to Rumble round 2 on there, and I was like, this is crazy. They had the really good version of Crazy Taxi, because I only played in the arcade then. But when I saw it the first time on Dreamcast, I was like, okay. That told me, okay, this is like arcade level good. That's how good this is right now. I didn't touch Soul Calibur 1. I did play 2 on 2. I think I played 2 everywhere. Like
yes.
They gave you reasons to though.
Yes, they did. Each one had a different character. Like I played the Xbox one that had Spawn. To this day. Well, okay, I get it for Spawn. Spawn was a cool character to me, but he never seemed like he could last and stand the time.
Right.
So I feel like every now and then someone tries to do something with Spawn, it doesn't work out. It just kind of is there. And then of course Heihachi on PS2. Yeah, but most of my GameCube, I had that was like my main console, like home console. It was my main home console from, I want to say 2001 when it came out, up to, because I didn't get a Wii either, because one, it was hard to get, and two, it was just two. I had other high school friends that did have it, so I'll be like, okay, we'll just go over there and play, the Wii or whatever. But yeah, that was pretty much for like that whole decade. That was GameCube. So Melee, Luigi's Mansion, both Sonic Adventures, pretty much all the Sonic games, got ported over because RIP Dreamcast. Rayman 3 was really good. NBA Street Volume 2 was a banger. I wish I had my old memory card from back then. I had like 3-4 created characters. I would just go through the little campaign. It was so good, man. I learned so much NBA history back then too, which is crazy. Put me on to Detroit. Man, iconic. Iconic. Oh god, well, there's so much more too. Like I got play a little bit of SSX then. I'm blank. I rented one of the other later 007. I think it was
Don't tell me it was Rogue.
No, definitely not that one. I think it was Nightfire. Nightfire was decent.
Nightfire was decent. From Russia with Love was good.
Yes, From Russia with Love was also good. Yep. And then Dragon Ball Budokai. I did play the game.
I forgot about Budokai series.
I know most everyone talks about PS2, but I did play the GameCube version of 1 and 2 on there.
There were some jerks for that. How you gonna have 1 and 2 on the GameCube?
Right.
And Acts 3. It was the same one with Soul Calibur. You got Soul Calibur. You got Soul Calibur 2, the best one on GameCube, and then when 3 came out, I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get this for GameCube." That's
why I missed that one.
Nope, only PlayStation.
I didn't know anybody else that had it too. That's why, like, what was it? Tenkaichi. I didn't really hop on that, but I did see them. I remember they made a Wii version of like the Tenkaichi game, or at least the second one.
The second one, it was Tenkaichi 2. Yeah.
2. Okay, that's right. But of course, I mentioned earlier the Icebreaker, Beautiful Joe 1.
Yeah,
that was like kind of my beginning of like action games. That game. I haven't played that game in so long. The hardest difficulty in that was like pretty much 2 hits from the regular enemies and you would die. So you pretty much had to know when they would pop up. You had to get your timings right, your combos right. It was a good time. But yeah, GameCube was really good. I did play a bit of like the Wave Race Blue Storm, which is good, but there's something about that. It's good. The 4-player now one is pretty solid. It was pretty solid, so I think for that it was really good. I never played Snake Avalanche. I think that was the one.
1080. Yeah,
the next one.
1080 was that was my game. 1080. And this when we got introduced into the SSX series too. Yes, boy. Yeah, man. I play. I think SSX Tricky. Tricky.
Yeah, man. Yeah, GameCube was just really good then. And then what was it? Xbox. The same friend that had the Dreamcast, he got an Xbox. He was the only one that had an Xbox in the community, just growing up in general. So we did have Halo 1, and that kind of fed from my previous GoldenEye, like me just hating first person shooters, so I wasn't good at them. Well, naturally, I just wasn't good at Halo, the original Halo. I didn't get into Halo until much later, funny enough. So I did get into it really big, like when 3 came out, and towards the end of 2 and 3. But on Xbox though, it was mostly that. Oh god, there was a couple other things on there. I'm blanking on. Actually, there was a I actually had I got Xbox later from another friend. He was like, I'm going to college. I don't want this Xbox. And I was like, I'll take it off you if you're not if you're not trying to have it. He's like, yeah, sure, you can got it. So with that, this was like in the later 2000s. I know we're kind of bouncing around timeline wise. We're trying to cover as much of the 6th gen stuff here. But yeah, that was when I played Metal Gear Solid 2. That's the only one I played through. And even to now, that game is crazy.
I never played through a Metal Gear Solid game. I don't like the stuff. I don't like
it. There was a I understand. There was a learning curve for them, or for that one. But once it kind of clicked with how you crouch and move and aim and stuff,
right?
I just kind of got into it, especially because of the wacky story. That's when I realized, okay, this is why people like Kojima. He has like these strangely compelling type of stories with things going, all this wacky stuff. It just goes from serious to really wacky, like within an instant. Even though it has like the crazy stuff of, oh, we're on the brink of war, but it's like, oh, you know, we have these nano machines and this and the other, and yeah, it was wild. Super Monkey Ball. That's very important for GameCube too. Yeah. But that was when I actually first time I owned 2, or no, they had it called Deluxe then, and then there was something else I had on there. I had Halo 2 on there at one point, but the disc was scratched, so it can only get so far in the campaign. So I didn't really play through the full campaign until a bit later. But that's really it. The Jet Set Radio Future. The Jet Set Radio Future with the Sega racing game that came, the 2-pack. Yeah, and so that pretty much made me a huge Jet Set Radio fan.
Oh, but this was also the introduction into Bleamcast too.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, like that's the thing about, honestly, the Dreamcast, like the Death for Sega Dreamcast was fascinating, because it was like after that it dawned on me, like a lot of the games from there, they got sequels, they got moved over to like GameCube, Xbox. They became like refugee consoles for them. Like Xbox was like Shenmue, Panzer Dragoon, Crazy Taxi, surprisingly, over there too. And then, of course, Nintendo was like Sonic.
Sonic.
Skies Arcadia, which I've never played.
Which that's the better version, the GameCube version.
It is okay. That's good.
Because it has extra content and it also runs better.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so whenever I do finally look for that or find a way to play it, that'll be the one I look for sure. Yeah. But yeah, man, I do echo what you say though. Both of y'all, Sandstorm Jack, about just 6th gen in general is just. Every console is
too many.
It's too many. Like the fact that you forgot games, and it's like, there's some more.
Actual hours. I don't want to do that because we got stuff to do later. But
I'm running through like a few, and I'm like, what? I forgot about this.
There's so many, man. And then there was a very brief moment. I had a Dreamcast, and I was in high school. This was like maybe 2006, 2007, and I had a few games there. I had Sonic Adventure 2, that version, which is interesting because that one has slight differences from the GameCube one. Outside of like multiplayer not being as like robust as the GameCube one. But like some of the graphics and shadows and stuff were different, little area. They had the cat cameos and levels, which was pretty
My thing is VMU was the biggest difference for me.
VMU.
Yeah.
Sega was really forward thinking with their hardware.
Yes.
They were like, what do you really want that? Like the Sega channel? Like that?
Yes.
We got subscription stuff everywhere now.
Yes. Sega could have still been here.
Yeah, I just think their business practices just
them
the most important part. They weren't super good at it consistently.
And the capper of giving Microsoft the opportunity to work on their system.
Yep.
Yeah, they have that. They do have the Microsoft logo on the Dreamcast.
Yep.
Because of that, I think with the modem and stuff like that. First time full big foray into online DLC. There's a crazy thing about too. But yeah, GameCube was pretty much the main thing I had there. The main Nintendo stuff Me and my cousin actually, we kind of did one of those. We kind of like did the pass the controller around for like Wind
Yeah.
Waker.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's the part, and I'm sure everyone in the chat that knows Wind Waker, you know what I'm talking about. There was a part we got stuck because like you had to figure out how to get to another great fairy to get the power, so you can go to the next part of the game. But you need a certain song because there's like a tile on the map, and every time you'll go near what will be like you think it'll be an island, you couldn't just go to it. And it'll always get stormy, and there'll always be a storm there, and it
Yeah.
like a cyclone. It was like the one of those frog dudes were in it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, what do we do here? It keeps popping every time. Yeah, like 5-6 times. And then I was like, have you tried attacking it? And my cousin got frustrated. He just pulled out the bow and arrow, started shooting it, and we're like, it's doing damage. Keep doing it. And then a cutscene happened. It's like, oh snap. You actually were able to hit me and see me? Cool. Here's I forgot what it's called, but here's the song so you can like teleport across the map. Once they can teleport inside where the Great Fairy was. And it was like, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's absolutely crazy. That was probably up until the Switch, I would say. That was probably the most diverse Nintendo first party. Like just about everything was there.
Yep.
Mm.
Just
Yeah.
about everything was there. Two
Yeah.
Star Fox games, technically two Star Fox games, F-Zero GX,
Yep.
two Zeldas,
Two
Mario
Zelda.
Sunshine,
Two
I know
Star Wars
Detroit.
games.
two Star Wars, the Donkey
Brown
Kong
there.
games.
Yep.
Jungle
Two-
Beat is a good game. I really
Two
enjoyed that.
Metroid. Two Metroid games.
Two Metro. Oh, I didn't even talk about
Yeah.
Metroid. I'm tripping.
Yeah.
That's actually how I got into Metroid, the Primes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Oof. It was
Yeah.
crazy back then. Crazy in a good way.
Ironically so, 3 or 4 Sonic games.
Right.
But-
That's how I
but
actually
crazy-
played a good chunk of the Sonic games.
But the
Cool.
crazy thing about it is, I'll down on this hill. The GBA Sonic games are still some of the best freaking Sonic games.
Agreed.
I agree.
Like they look great, they move great, everything about them are on point. Now, I wasn't a big fan of like how they handled the DS, but
Mhm.
Yeah, me either. I like
Yeah,
the music, but that
the
was good.
screen. Oh yeah, the music was on point. And then they add a lot of characters within Sonic, but there are only a handful that I'm like, I like what you did. And I forget her name, the purple, what was her name? Because she was in Sonic Rush. What is her name?
Rush? Oh, Blaze the Cat.
Blaze the Cat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, like I said, I'm not a big fan of Silver and Biggs and all of them, but
I
But
hate
Big is just kind of like he's just kind of a dopey character, I guess.
Yeah.
Never really was cool about. I'm kind of neutral on Silver now. I hated him because he was in 06 and I hated 06 back then. I was just like, this game is
Right.
absolute garbage. I mean, we already know.
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we ate good that generation. I mean, and then that was what, because we got the DS before we got into Wii, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was like GBA
yeah.
DS. time
Just
frame.
before, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, I mean, even though the DS was ugly, it's still like one of those things to where it got pretty over time. It grew into
It did,
look.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the 6th generation, man. I mean, from like I said, creative ideas like the VMU.
Yeah.
To the different controller style in GameCube, and then like RJ was saying with co-op, like
Mhm.
having 4 controllers, or
Yes.
if you did Link, what's it called, 4 swords, you had 4 game advances.
Fourth sword, yeah.
Oh man, I always wish I could try to do
Me
like
too.
the double dash like
Yeah.
land thing. That seems so like futuristic to me. I was like, how
Yeah.
like no one, because you need so many things to make it work.
Yeah,
Mhm.
You
and then
you
same
need
thing
the-
with what was it, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles,
Yeah.
That's
like-
right. Yup.
all like obscure things, but it was like forward thinking. And then even when you talk
Yeah.
about PS2, I mean, this was ushering in like really good RPGs, like
Yeah.
really good RPGs.
Yeah.
But like I always tell people with the PS2 and the Xbox, the reason why we still probably would never see any of majority of games we love, licensing issues. Because
Yeah.
I mean, when I tell you there was a McDonald's everywhere, there was a Burger King
A
everywhere,
lot of
like
branding, a lot of
everything.
lot
lot of
branding in
actual
this
music and licensing.
yes.
Mhm.
That's
That's
why
why
Just
Tony Hawk
Radio
get beat up.
Future never coming back. Half of them songs are just stuck in just licensed purgatory, man. It's
Yeah.
rough.
So,
yeah.
so for me, I'm not gonna go through the story because we're pressed for time. But
Oh yeah.
But I'm gonna throw out some. I'm gonna throw out some. Oh yes, I remember that game. Hit y'all with a few of them as I go down the line here.
Okay, I'm ready.
So this was the era that really popped off Fight Night.
Yep.
Yeah, Fight Night. That's right.
Fight Night. Yes, sir.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
had
He feels like yo.
Def Jam.
yep,
Yeah.
Jam Fight for
yep,
New. Oh
yep.
yeah. Someone mentioned in the chat Def Jam Fight for New York. It's
Yep.
been a minute now.
We had the Robotech game. We had a sleuth of some killers in Baten Kaitos and Lost Kingdoms.
Yep. Mhm.
When I realized Lost Kingdom was made by From Software, I had a mind blown moment. I was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Because that's their
okay.
greatest game to me. I tell everybody that
They
is
made
their
like
greatest
2 of
game
them
all
or
time.
3 or something crazy.
Hey,
Yeah.
The Muso games.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dynasty Warriors
Yep.
4.
Musos. We had the start of Marvel Alliance.
Yeah.
Ultimate Alliance.
Yep.
I actually got the 360 version of those last year.
I'm kind of surprised you didn't say this one, Jack. Harvest Moon.
Oh, yeah.
The Pikmin games came out during this time. Somebody already said it in the chat, but I gotta say it again because shout outs to it because that was a game. True Crimes came out during this time.
Oh.
New York and LA.
And LA, yep.
And the Splinter Cell series came out.
Yeah, I was about to
Yep,
mention.
yep.
See, this is Chaos Theory.
Somebody said Max Payne in there too.
Max
Yep,
Payne.
Max
Yeah.
Payne,
When we
yep.
started
Yeah.
doing
The bullet time.
the bullet time crap.
Matrix had chokehold and everybody.
We
Yeah.
had the Devil May Cry series come out during
Yep.
this time.
Devil May
Oh,
Cry.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
right.
knew of Devil May Cry, but I hadn't played one until much later. Honestly,
We didn't even mention Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, Grand Theft Auto.
that's like the
yep.
Grand
biggest
Theft
one.
Auto's year, right? And this was the
V1.
system.
Yep.
V1.
Yep. We got Fire Emblem that really started moving during this time.
True.
Um,
The Melee stimulus package. And Marth Roy.
Right. Who are these?
What game is that?
They're swordsmen.
Right.
So okay.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the greatest games in its own franchise, Tales of Symphonia.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
That's
Um,
version
let's see. You have somebody already said Wave Race. Luigi's Mansion started off on here.
Yeah.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
Trying to find the PlayStation ones because I know there was a few PlayStation ones on here. I was like, oh yeah. God of War started off in this.
Jack and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank.
Yep.
Yep.
Sly
Nice.
Cooper.
They started building their own names during this
Thanks,
generation.
Thanks.
Clank, man.
Thanks,
Uh,
Sony.
It's really rough. Like for all this, that much
Hey,
variety,
Prince of
so many
Persia.
sequels.
The Prince of Persia games.
Prince of Persia, yeah.
At the time, it's crazy how Ubisoft jacked up their own remake. That's so
Right.
crazy to me. How do you do that?
Nigga, what you made.
That should be a slam dunk. Like what? Don't even overthink it. Just
Right.
find how that game was made back then, and it was
Take
on
what
everything.
you
back
already had.
then. Right.
Crazy.
They're like, yeah, no, we're not gonna do that.
Nah, that's too
That's not-
easy.
Just too easy.
Shadow of the Colossus and Battlefront came from there.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Dang, I was thinking of what's our game? Vito. The Star Wars.
Battlefield. Battlefield.
What,
No, the other one.
KOTOR?
No. Well, that too.
KOTOR
That
was-
came
There's
from
a
that.
bunch of Star Wars. back then.
Academy.
That was the game.
Jedi Academy.
Jedi. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
they brought that one back recently.
Yep. The Mortal Kombat games, Armageddon, and what was the other one that came out during around that time?
Blanks Time Sweeper.
Armageddon
Ew.
and
Ew.
hold on.
It
What was
is.
the one with the tower joint or the pyramid joint?
Yeah, that's the one I'm trying to think of.
It was Armageddon. Was it Armageddon with the weapons?
Yeah, Armageddon was the one with the red seal on it.
We played it in the arcade not too long ago. The other one that we talked
Yeah. I can't even think of the name of it.
about.
Yeah,
Shoot.
Cameo.
Armageddon.
First
Cameo. Yeah.
First Crackdown was fun on 360.
Was that when they introduced Frost?
Yeah.
God, what which one is that?
Um,
Man, look it up, man. You got to Google.
I got all these other ones that I gotta go through.
Wait, which one you need so I can look it up?
Deception? Ew.
Deception. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Ew.
Actually, that's
Dark
probably
Lord. Ew.
that's actually a big blind spot. The section there of the Mortal Kombats. It's like after
those
the
games were
Genesis
awful.
ones, it just was like nothing. Well, for me, it was just nothing. I never saw him again until Mortal Kombat 9
To
Mm.
on
me,
Xbox 360, which is
to me,
crazy.
Mortal Kombat died to me when 4 popped up. Like that's when they were trying to do the whole 3D.
3D.
weapons
Is
and
that
stuff.
Deadly Alliance or am I thinking of
Yeah,
another
yeah,
one?
Yeah.
Is that one? Okay.
Mhm.
I remember seeing that in magazines.
Like
Yeah.
the only Mortal Kombat I really touched was they dropped Mortal Kombat Gold on Dreamcast, and then they did
Really?
Shaolin Monks.
Mm.
Yeah,
I always hear a cult following so about Shaolin Monks.
that's
It
that
looks
game.
kind of fun. It actually looks pretty. Is it kind of like I don't want to say beat 'em up, but it's not like a traditional.
It's
fighting
more
game,
adventure
right?
than it is.
Adventure. Okay. I think I've seen some gameplay of that one, and it looked interesting.
I don't know why Ed Boon and them won't redo it. I don't. Maybe there's something wrong with it.
Gotta
I
make
know-
Mortal Kombat 1.
Yeah.
I mean, they started over. I mean, now leave Sub-Zero mythology alone. I do not want that. Now they can try.
Yeah.
They can do Special Forces again though,
Mm.
but I don't know.
They
Uh,
remastered
Hey,
a lot of those games.
Tekken
For all of
4 came out on that generation, right?
Te-
Yep.
And-
Tekken
Oh
Tag
man,
Yep.
And tag team.
And
Tag
Tekken.
Team 1,
Yep.
Tekken 4.
Most
Wait.
Wanted, Need for Speed came out around
sir.
this time.
The Underground series too. Woo!
Yep,
boy.
the Underground.
Oh, yeah, Need for
One,
Speed
I'm
Underground.
surprised that none of us said because this was also the beginning of the end. Spider-Man games came out around that time too.
But they had so many of them though. Like they were very.
There were a
forgiving.
couple good ones back then.
They
I would
really
say the
did.
only good one. Well, okay, we're talking about 6 gen. Okay,
Yeah.
actually,
7 gen was even worse.
Rethink that. Rethink the 6 gen one because they
no.
were okay.
I will. The only ones I will. Well, I never played the Ultimate Spider-Man one, but a friend of mine, he talks about that highly. But the Spider-Man 2 movie game, that one was pretty solid.
That one was
The
solid,
swinging,
yeah.
that one, I know.
That
The
was
swinging.
That
That
was
was
the one that changed everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
where
one
you
like
fought Rhino at the first part of it.
Yep.
yeah. That one was funny because you can once you level up your character, you can web up the enemies,
Mhm.
swing all the way up to like the Empire State Building, jump
Mhm.
off, and you had a pile driver move you can do, and you would just spin. In that game, they had like crazy blur. They had crazy blur in that game. So when you got really
Does
fast,
see
you just
blur.
became like whoosh.
You know that man's dead.
Yeah, it was a fun like sandboxy Spider-Man game. But honestly, going back to it, it's kind of rough because it's very, very
It's
janky.
very rough.
Yeah.
But for the time, I would say the swinging holds up. But everything else, very janky.
The combat is
Yeah.
Mm.
Dark Void though. Shout out to that Incredible Hulk. Man.
Yeah.
on the
Ultimate
GameCube.
Destruction?
I like the
I
GameCube
just-
version better. Yeah, but
Yeah, I do
that-
too. I do
man.
Shout outs to the bouncer as well.
The bouncer.
Which I heard like so somebody was going through a list of PS2 games like that, like the Bouncer, God Hand, that were sleepers, but they got reviewed poorly.
Mm.
But they were actually really good games, and I've never
Yeah.
played.
Me either.
Okami came out on this in this generation.
Oh,
Okami,
Tommy, yeah.
yeah.
That's true.
Persona 4 came out during this generation.
There was a lot of
Which-
Persona games that
Which
came out.
makes you realize we're in the 9th, going into the 10th generation, and we still talk about Persona 4. And it's
Yeah.
like, man, when are you gonna get away from that?
That's how I learned about Persona because what was it? They made the fighting game Persona 4 Arena,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, "What is this? And why is the main music so good?"
Yeah.
Or
Like-
not the character select screen music so good. And I look back and I was like, "Oh, there's these RPGs I missed out because
Yeah.
no PS2 for me."
Yeah.
But that was shouts out to G4TV once again. Like
True.
right before I was going to basic training, they were reviewing Persona 3 FES because I guess
Oh, okay.
the remake of it, and it was like, imagine playing a game where you got a persona, but the way you pull out the persona is you take a gun and you shoot yourself in the head. I'm like, that sounds crazy. I'm going to go pick that up.
Oh man! And now that remake came out.
Yeah. And that's still my favorite. I was like, that game, that the idea of that, I was like, that sounds nuts. Let me go cop that right now before I go to basic training.
Oh
Um,
man!
So before we get into the 6th generation, small shout outs to Zoids. for Jack. You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
Zoid's game.
Oh, it's crazy.
But getting into moving into the 6th generation, so Nintendo. This would be statistically the last time that Nintendo tries to fight with
Yeah.
graphical power
Mhm.
and fidelity with the GameCube. While we had all those amazing games, the system didn't sell as well as they wanted it to.
Nope.
As PlayStation, aka the supercomputer, beat it by quite a margin during this generation, and Sega finally bowing out into the race to allow Xbox to move into that space.
Yep.
And so moving into the 7th generation,
Boo.
we got Xbox moving in first with, if I remember this correctly, Sony moved in second and Nintendo
Yeah.
moved in last,
Yeah.
but only by days.
Yeah, they both came out
In November.
In November 2006. Yeah, they were like either days, like a week apart. It was one of those two.
Yeah, it wasn't that far apart from each other.
Yeah.
And this would mark the first time that Sony did some wrong. Did some
Yeah.
real wrong.
$600.
Some real-
Trying to justify it too, and this was my
Real
first time
wrong.
ever hearing people getting killed and robbed over a console. Like that was nuts.
$600 for a system? Yeah. Which in today's day is still really
Still
pushing
nasty.
it. Yeah. But yeah, Vito, what was your experience of the 7th generation?
All right, so 7th generation was strictly 360,
Mhm.
I think. And that PS3, I wanted it, but like Jack said, people are dying for it.
Yeah.
So, like, I didn't want to put nobody in jeopardy, especially down here.
Right.
Selfless.
Run up on me. You
By that
want to.
time, you were down there now. Yeah, like
Yeah. And I had illegal guns and all that type of stuff, so I was definitely gonna pop somebody
Yeah.
trying to get me on some PS3 type stuff. So, that was a wicked time. But at the time, like that's also pre-college, or that's college for me or whatever. And at that time, a lot of people like I had like this dude from Albany. He was like
all over state of Georgia, man.
no. It was like we went to Fort Valley State.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had some friends that went down there too.
Yeah. So like I had like people from like Albany, Savannah, Augusta, all that stuff. So, but he was from Albany, but his people were like from New York or something. So he used to have like a lot of stuff that we didn't have like right away, right down here or whatever that they had up there. But anyway, he had like he was like promising like the 360 is a better system, this and that and the third, it's cheaper too, and on top of that you won't, blah blah blah, this and the third. But I was like, what about the Ring of Death he was hearing about? So
Yeah.
you know what I mean, like after I guess that whole surge of the Ring of Death, I actually got my 360 after the after version, the after Ring of Death. So I want to say my mom was going out of state for a catastrophe thing. As far as there was a hurricane that year, I don't know what happened, but anyway, she had to go to Florida. Like she went out to Jacksonville.
That was a nasty hurricane. I think that was like around Allen at the time, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been a different one. My bad.
Yeah. But she went down there and like it was like literally around my birthday. So she actually like, and I was coming home from college or whatever like that. So you know what I'm saying, I was at the crib. She was gone. She was like, I left you, your Christmas presents underneath the tree, blah blah this and that. I'm like, I'm too over that. You know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying? I was like, okay. I was like, cool. You know what I'm saying? All right. But I'm thinking to myself at this time, I'm like, I have to buy my own system. So automatically, I'm like, I'm working at my little piece of job that I had, and you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to save up my money for like a little Xbox, like my homeboy said or whatever. And lo and behold, I looked underneath that tree, and there was something that was in the form of a box. And I'm like, what is that? So I'm thinking it's shoe, because the way it looked, it was weird. It was just high. It was like I didn't pull it all the way out. I wasn't doing no sneaking, looking around, whatever. But anyway, Christmas came. I pulled it all the way, and I was like, "No, this is a little heavier than shoes." I opened it up, and I was like, "Oh!" So that was like my mom's like last time buying me a system. You know, at that point, I was like basically like trying to, but she knew I was saving up for it. You know what I'm saying? So that was her excuse on that part. But I was like, I'm a grown man. I'm supposed to buy my own stuff right at this point.
Right.
I ended up getting a 360. Actually, this was my first 360. My first 360.
Everyone had a first 360.
Yeah. Last.
Yep.
I don't know what I was playing Dante's Inferno.
Oh,
Ooh, Dante's Inferno. That game still rubbed me the wrong way. Boy.
that game had a lot of. Yeah, they took it there for a number of things. They took it there, game, especially the
no reason.
Dante's Inferno put an Inferno on my 360, so it literally overheated. So I thought the game was cursed, right? So I got rid of Dante's Inferno. So I went to some guy, he tried to fix it or whatever like that, but he couldn't fix it. It was like a scam anyway, but I ended up leaving it there. I was like, I don't want it. So then like my saving up, I still had that money left over, so I bought another 360. And from there, GameStop, like I kept telling you with that whole little that season where I was buying a whole bunch of PlayStation games, I also was buying a whole bunch of Xbox games too at that time.
Okay.
So use Xbox games and stuff. So literally, when I say I had over at least 200 to 300 games,
oof, boy.
Wow.
I'm not exactly.
You went out.
Like literally.
That was the gen.
You showed out.
So like basically that actually plays into the next gen after. You know what I'm saying? That actually pays off. You know what I'm saying? But I had like at least about 300 games between Xbox and PlayStation. You know what I'm saying? I was basically just kind of collecting a lot of them and playing them here and there or whatever like that. But that was my generation. Like that was that. Right. Yeah. So later on though, my uncle Scotty, he ended up getting like he had a PS3, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point in time, I was like kind of like I mean, I'm still with my 360. We starting to go into the new gen here in a minute, but let me go ahead and get on that. And at that time, Sandstorm was like, yeah, get on DC Online. Get on DC Online. So I got on DC Online. So basically, I only had that.
I forgot about that game.
Second, and I played Black Ops and DC Online on there. So, but like I said, a lot of my experience was with the 360, like with Witcher, or like with I think it was Mass Effect.
Yeah.
What else? Dead Space.
I think you're the one who got me actually into Bayonetta. I think you played Bayonetta before I did.
Yeah, definitely got you into Bayonetta. I know I did. Because my pervert ass was sitting up here getting into it. I get my hands on.
I think you were way further than I was too. I remember this because I think you were like close to the end already of the game.
Yeah.
You were like, there was this dope game, you gotta go pick it up. It's called Bayonetta. It's like Devil May Cry, but it's with a girl.
Yeah.
And she's a witch. I'm like, oh, okay. And you were like, but she does like these real sexy poses. And I was like,
that thing is banging.
Yeah, like,
yeah. It was crazy.
But wait a minute.
It wasn't bad.
But it didn't catch me until he was like, yeah. So when she does her powers, like as she does her powers, like her suit is made of her hair, and I was like, yeah, that sounds like a French woman. I don't like that. He's like, but when she does her powers, like the greater her power is, like the more her hair comes off her clothing because it's also part of her powers. And I was like, oh,
she get naked.
I can put two and two together.
They missed the opportunity. They should have had some God of War situations going on. But definitely like I was getting into all types of games, you know what I'm saying, with 360. I mean, there was so many so many games I probably would. Assassin's Creed. You know what I'm saying? Like
That was the start of Assassin's Creed. Yeah.
yeah, like Assassin's Creed. My first person shooter, because I didn't like it. Well, not my first, because my first was James Bond, the little 7, but in a long time. But Far Cry 3, you know what I mean? That was on my little my playlist or whatever. I actually tried. There was another one that I tried. I think it was a Call of Duty. Oh, Black Ops. It was a Black Ops. Or was it Black Ops?
Probably.
It was one of the Call of Duty. I swear it was Black Ops. I feel like it was, because that's the only Call of Duty I actually play. Just because it's off the wall. like some of the guns and stuff on there is just off the wall. I'd be like, oh, okay, that's crazy. But definitely like 360. That was that gen for me. Like I couldn't tell you what PS3 could offer besides the damn life. Your life being taken if you go try to get one at the $600 range.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I remember about that. Plus, I want to say when it came out with the Pro, I was on my way to get it, but I think I ended up getting like something else at that time. I forgot what it. Oh, the Wii. I ended up getting the Wii. Yeah, but yeah. So that was my that gen. That was my experience with it. It was a lot of 360. A lot of 360 stuff. Ask me anything about 360, I probably tell you.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right. So Jack, what about you?
So I'm gonna try to make this quick because I know we can go on forever with this stuff. But
yeah.
So once again, this was me getting into all 3 bags. But I did get the 360 first. I got it for Christmas from my stepdad. Now, this is where disappointment kicks off heavy. Because one, didn't know anything about this whole hard drive at the top nonsense. So you had to get into those memory cards first, and then the hard drives, if you were lucky enough to get one. Because my stepdad, he was like, hey, boy, I got the cheapest one. Like, I ain't even trying to play them games. So I'm like, okay, I had to still deal with memory cards. And then eventually I end up getting like a hard drive. But where the disappointment continued was my favorite sports games are getting tore up.
Yeah.
Madden's not Madden. Live ain't live. Like, there's a lot of sweat, but it's not, like, when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, NBA Live looked crazy. Then when I bought the game, I was like, this don't move the same. This don't play the same. Like, 2K to me was getting up there. Like, that was the only like progression that I was like, all right, bet. But that's where I was like, okay, my sports games are taking a hit. But the increases came with the Need for Speed Most Wanted. You know, getting into Gears of War. Like, that was when I realized, oh, third-person shooters, I like these. Like, at first I thought I just didn't care for shooters, but it was first-person shooters I didn't care for, but third-person shooters. But then also getting into Cameo of Elements, like that series I thought was going to continue for sure, but it just didn't after that first game. But then, you know, fast forward in some time and, you know, them revising the system and, you know, with the Elite and everything else, but getting into like the arcade games, like those were some sleepers for sure. Like I really enjoyed the arcade games like Shadow Complex. Like that was one of my go-tos playing that game. Getting into the Telltale, like this was when Telltale started showing they tail at this point. Like like they started doing a thing around this time. And I was never really a Call of Duty person, but Battlefield, like I liked the first couple of Battlefields before we start getting into this like online only thing. Like the what was it called? Two Brothers? Yeah. It's like that was my game. Like I preferred that one because that was a single player situation. So there's more on Xbox, but then going over into PlayStation, much in the same vein of what I saw up here earlier with PlayStation, we got Uncharted, which, you know, Uncharted 2 was still one of my favorite Uncharted games. Grand Theft Auto 4, while slept on, was still, like, to me, I like that The engine was on point. The game looked great.
Mm-hmm.
It was really like Grand Theft Auto evolving. Now, granted, San Andreas is still my joint. Like, it was still evolving. I was one of the lucky ones, and chat, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was the it was either the 60 or the 80 gig, to where it had like the SD card readers. It can do PS1 and PS2 back compat.
Oh, the metal one. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they were so weird. It was like, oh, you can get the 20 all the way to 80, but then the 60 did some stuff that the 80 didn't do, that the 20 didn't do. It was so stupid. And then not to mention like the 6-axis controller, and then finally we got Rumble back later on in the controllers.
Right.
So PS3 just wasn't, and then the thing was huge. So PS3 just really wasn't my vibe kicking off. And then not to mention like with Bayonetta, I was on the same line as Trae Vito. You know, we saw Bayonetta, you know, and then I tried it on PS3 and I was like, ooh, this plays bad. And then somebody was like, hey, go get the 360 one. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, all right, because that PS3 version was awful. Trait garbage. And then that was because I also played Sonic 06 on there too, and I was like, is this my PlayStation? It was, but it was like, no, it was just them games. But you know, PlayStation to me doesn't really hold a lot of memories because I got rid of it pretty fast. You know, because once again, like it just wasn't really hitting. But I got the Wii when we moved to Columbus, Georgia. That was like my last time staying with my mom before I ended up going into the military. But we were in Columbus, tried to get the Wii. And I remember going into stores and they would just have like the shells of accessories. Like they didn't have them yet, but they were like, hey, it's gonna be here. And this is the price whenever we get them in. And my mom was like, all right, like I'm gonna try to get this Wii, but they keep telling me they're just not available. And I'm like, and this is my first time ever hearing something like that. Usually you just go to the store and pick something up, it's there. But this is my first time ever hearing that a console just was not available. So when it finally showed up, like one Christmas, we end up getting one. And you know, just seeing everything that came with it and seeing how, okay, I can still play games, but I'm missing a lot of buttons. And this thing is a remote control with a nunchuck. And I'm like, how are they going to pull this off? So, of course, Wii Sports is going to be the thing that everybody goes to. Excite Truck is another sleeper that I don't ever hear a lot of people talk about. Of course, we know the Galaxy series. Crazy. You know, when we talk about that was my introduction into Capcom versus Tatsunoko or whatever.
Tatsunoko versus Capcom.
Yes.
Yeah.
That game, I needed a fighter. And I was like, okay, this might be like Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Because remember, we was jonesing for Marvel vs. Capcom 2 or 3. And we never got it.
So GameCube. Nope.
I went with that one. And so, you know, seeing all these different attachments, that's kind of where I started falling off of Wii, because you start seeing your whole house and corner in your living room full of plastic. It was like
a lot of stuff, made
guns, golf clubs, tennis rackets, steering wheels. It was getting nuts. But nonetheless, there were still like some really good games when you talk about like Mad World. You know, that really shut down all of the kiddie talk with Nintendo. You know, and you know, just seeing how they were controlling these games, the only annoying part that came down the Wii for me was people. And it really got to the point of like, well, how do you play this? Do you just shoot and do this and do this? I say, you do know that they have an attachment called a classic controller and a pro controller, right? Like you can still play games the regular way, and also GameCube controllers work with this device. Like it's a thing, you know. It's
they did that.
So
I played so many Wii games with a GameCube controller.
So many. Right. So like, because even like to this day, because we have from anybody that watches either channel, I have an Odin 2. And then also I have like my my Ambernick one as well, and we have what they call the Mayflash Dolphin Bar, and you can plug it up because it's Android and use your regular Wii remote controls. And so me and my family still play those type of games to this day, whether you know you turn it sideways, use it as a pointer, or plug in. Well, you don't have to do the classic anymore because you can do Bluetooth controllers, but for me, the Wii was Nintendo making something different. Because it was getting real boring real fast, and the graphics were not really going anywhere, and the writing was on the wall, and so a lot of the games that I loved went away. So like we said with PlayStation, the Sly Coopers, Jack was kind of going out the window because they were getting a little crazy with the Jack series. And then you looked at like MotorStorm showed up, but it was like MotorStorm could have been that game that's still around, but something went wrong. Like, like
I never knew what happened. Yeah,
I don't know. Like everything for that game was there. It's just it never got over the hump, and Sony just kind of said whatever. So they
kind of been fumbling their racing games for a couple generations, in my opinion. I would say.
Yeah,
I think starting there is when they kind of start faltering.
Yeah, and now I will say this too. I'll give Sony credit on this. While and this will be my last thing because, like I said, I didn't want to get too long into it, but I'm a sports guy, 100%. 2K at this time graphically was getting there. The gameplay was still or whatever the case may be. Live was dying to me. Like they were really not doing anything. Yeah. But there was a sleeper that was out there. And I solely blame them for what 2K is doing right now. And that was NBA 09 or whatever year it was at the time. That was Sony's exclusive basketball game. They were the ones doing like story modes at the time before 2K ever did it. So I feel like once that died, 2K took it on and just went completely left with it. Because that NBA storyline that they had, there was no VC, there was no any of that. It was just a legitimate, to the core story, and their mechanics were getting better. But then by the time I think 09 came out, I guess they just kind of said, you know what, we couldn't really advance it anymore, and so they just left it alone and let 2K and Live have it.
Yep.
But that Sony had a NBA game that I think would have rivaled 2K to today. I really do. Like Xbox basketball game was close, but I felt like NFL Fever was closer. So when I look at like the sports range of where we are to where there's only 2K, Madden, and you got the PGA tours, and then they're slowly trying to bring tennis back. I feel like Sega would have been running tennis because of the Virtua Tennis games. I feel like still will smoke anybody. I feel like basketball wise, Sony would have had it. Football wise, Microsoft would have had it. And then golf wise, depending on if you talk about simulation or whatever, Nintendo. Because Nintendo with the arcade style of golf, I think would have had it. And I think we legitimately would have had sports games that were all different, but for their own good reasoning. And then even when we talk about fighting, we got fighters around, but Def Jam, heavy drop. And I get
that Def Jam icon, that was
heavy.
That was a huge disappointment. That and real quick, that one and the NBA Street Home Court, it looked cool on the trailers. I remember the IGN trailer. Yeah. When I tried like a demo, I was on the 360. I was just like, this ain't hitting. Something's missing. Yeah. The sauce is gone. The sauce is gone with this.
It was gone.
And who were those by?
EA. I will say, I will say EA Big. Yeah. Now, I knew a guy that used to work for EA Big, and he was saying at the time they were just trying to, go a part of a trend of these games coming out, but then they just milked it so much so, and then when it didn't happen anymore, they dispersed of the entire team. So you'll never see those games again because that team doesn't exist anymore. And same thing when you look at Tiburon. Tiburon used to be the ones that were the real game makers of Madden, and why they were so good. And then when they got rid of Tiburon, those games changed forever. So it's certain studios. It's the same thing we talk about with Rare. Like even though like we understand Microsoft owns Rare, that team's not there anymore. Right. But the Rare we know is the one that gave us the Donkey Kong, they gave us the Conkers, they gave us Banjo, they gave us a bunch of games, honestly. But those are kind of like the main three that we know. And that's the same thing on EA's side. So when he was like, yeah, they got rid of Big real quick, And even for me, I'm in the gaming news now and pay attention to all that stuff now. I didn't pay attention to it back then. I was just playing the games, but I did not know that NFL Street 2 released the same year NFL Street did.
Yeah.
And that to me was
Oh,
crazy.
yeah.
I always thought it was a year or maybe 2 years later. No, it was in the
It
same
was the same year.
Same year, yep.
But I watched a documentary on it, and they were like, it was because of NBA Street Volume 2.
Yeah.
Like, it hit so hard, they was like, oh, we got to drop a second one for NFL Street. And then they did the same thing with FIFA, and it just kept going, and they milked the cow a little bit too much. But the sauce and everything that came along with Volume 2, with Fight for New York, like, they understood it. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan, a complete big fan of like Need for Speed Underground 2 over Midnight Club, because Need for Speed Underground 2 was literally just copying Fast and the Furious. Like that's all they were doing.
Yeah.
So to where
big,
Midnight
man.
Club was original. And that's what I like 3 over anything Need for Speed.
That's wild that you say that, because now that I think about it, they even had the like little that come out the side.
They had
with
the
the
dancing
smoke.
before the races. Like they copied it to a T. Like they changed nothing up. But that whole era in itself of like the 7th gen, I always give the nod to the Wii. And that's solely because it did things differently. I had more games for the 360, but as far as like what I enjoyed and what I played, it was the Wii. But I will say games that I picked up 360 wise, I don't play them anymore. They don't exist. Like those franchises just don't exist anymore. So it leads to, it tells you everything you need to know. But yeah.
Right. All right, Geronimo, you're next. What about you, man?
Oh man. Okay, so 7th gen was actually very interesting for me, for a number of reasons, because that was, like I said, kind of when I was talking about my 6th gen experiences. I want to say a lot of like, let's see, we could say it starts 2005 with the 360, 2005 to like 2008 or 9. Most of it was like through other people's consoles, like other people's Nintendo Wii, other people's 360. I did get my own 360 in college, like a few years after that, like in 2010, 2011, around that time. And that was an interesting story too. There was literally, I think I really only had like 2 or 3 real experiences of the PS3. There was the summer of 2009, which was literally I just finished high school, and I was like, well, I got nothing to do this summer. my sister, same one that had the NES from back in the day, she had gotten I think she had the original PS3, the fat one with the 4 USB ports on the front.
Yeah.
But she mostly had that because that was before Sony, the PS4, they start locking down a lot of the multimedia functions of it. So you can use that as like a music player. Music player, video player. There's a multimedia thing you just have in the living room. And it just so happened it played games. But that summer I played a good bit of I played a good bit of Moto Storm, because I think it was like at one time, I think it was one of those get a game free at that point. I played Resistance Fallen Man, the first one. No one really talks about that series anymore.
That or Killzone.
No one.
Yeah.
That or Killzone, and I mean, who's fault are those? But yeah. Oh boy, that is awkward. It's awkward. But yeah, that game is interesting because like I enjoyed it for back then. I wouldn't say it's one of those like, oh man, it was gold. You gotta bring it back. It was a serviceable first person shooter game. It was kind of interesting because it blended like the old World War I aesthetic, both like sudden random alien sci-fi weapons. So the way they clash kind of made the multiplayer pretty fun. The single player, pretty forgettable. Just aliens invading, and it's kind of like old timey wartime, but. Yeah, but multiplayer was fun. I think the multiplayer is a bit underrated in some aspects, but nothing to be like, yeah, we gotta bring that back. So I did miss the other 2 Resistances, and I think the one that was on the Vita or not the Vita, the PSP. I know they did a handheld one. I just can't remember which one it is. I played Mirror's Edge on PS3, but before that,
Mirror's Edge.
Yeah. they fumbled that with the sequel for sure.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
sequel.
but that game was so good. It was like the demo that came out on the 360. I played that on a friend's one just constantly. It was just one of those. But yeah, pretty much from like 05 to 09, most of that was like 360, and that was Halo 3. The Halo 3 craze, it got me. It made me a fan. It got me. Gears 1 mostly. I played a little bit of 2 and barely played 3. Not that I thought it was bad or anything. I just didn't play them like that. But yeah, that's when I really started getting the shooters then for sure. Rock. Well, no. I dabbled in Guitar Hero, but I was in band then. So
It was dying around that time. Rock Band was coming in around that time.
Yeah, it was starting to die down then too, and then that's when Rock Band. I actually like Rock Band more just because I had the drum set, and that's what I always played on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then that was good. And then of course the Wii. I also got a Wii later in 2010, but before that, most of it was a bit of Metroid Prime 3. Amazing game still. Of course, like Wii Sports. Everyone was on the Wii Sports craze when it first dropped in 06. And then, God, there's something else I'm blanking on there. Oh, Brawl. Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Crazy. I remember when Sonic got announced for it. I was in my library, and I was like, okay, before I can go home, we go checked on the site, and there's a trailer. I was freaking out. I couldn't believe it. It was crazy. As soon as I got home, I watched the trailer again like a dozen more times. It just seemed unreal. I was like, what? Sonic's in here? That's crazy. And that was like back in that era of internet where rumors weren't flying immediately like on social media. So if there was a rumor, I either was like, okay, this is probably a hoax because people just fabricate stuff, but you wouldn't get confirmation for that for stretches of time. Or if it is something real, you wouldn't really know about it again until like E3, because E3 was like the time for major game announcements and stuff. It was the time outside of like random trailers popping up on IGN or GameSpot and whatnot. And so that's kind of most of the 360 stuff there. But honestly, in the 2010s, leading up into 8th gen, that's when I was in college, and pretty much the first half of that decade. I got a Wii. I don't have that Wii anymore though. I actually gave it to another friend. That's when I got a Wii U because I was like, oh, it's backward compatible. I can just use the Wii U. So that's why I kind of let that one go. But for the Wii days, big in the Mario Kart Wii. I did dabble with some of the GameCube ones they put on there. The tennis one with the Wii remote, it was fine. Golf was fine too. I was really big on the Sonic Colors. I did start some of Twilight Princess on the Wii, but I originally played on the GameCube because, like I said, that first half I was rocking the GameCube still, so I was still playing stuff there. So I'm used to the GameCube stuff for Twilight Princess, and I think that's what the Wii U version, the HD, is based off that version with some things from the Wii too. But man, I'm trying to think what else from that era. Yeah, I think everybody really just got on shooters back then, man. Because it's like a lot of the other more interesting things kind of got diluted. Like I said earlier, NBA Street took an L during that time. Well, I wasn't really ever big into sports games like that, but then I did start noticing Madden was I started noticing the quality was dipping. That was like the rise of Call of Duty. I didn't know about. I kind of knew what Elder Scrolls was, but I didn't really know until like my college roommate. I came home one day. And he was like, oh, I just got this new game. And I'm like, oh, what you playing? He's like, I got Skyrim. And I was like,
oh, yeah.
You play Skyrim? And he's like, oh, yeah, man. These are just the games I like. Like
the Skyrim pad. Yeah.
And I was like, Skyrim, that's crazy. GTA 5, that came out on my birthday, the 360 one. I took off. I did not go to work that day. I was like, I'm calling. That was like one of the few times I would ever call back then for like working fast food or whatever. And I was like, I'm not coming in. They're like, why? It's like GTA 5 on my birthday. I'll see y'all tomorrow.
Hey, he was honest,
I'm gonna be honest with you.
I mean, look, I could lie, but I'm gonna just keep it real. Like this
that's
what
how I
came
did
out.
college football this year. I was like, I'm not coming in. They was like, why not?
Yep.
College football.
Yep. Yeah, that's a real reason too, because that's the first time it came back. So
yeah.
been a long time. But yeah. So GTA 5 was a huge thing. Call of Duty, the rise of Call of Duty, big time. And for me, it's like as a avid Halo fan back then, I was like, oh no, Halo's not getting as popular anymore. Like it was starting to slow. Well, Reach was good. Halo Reach was really good. That was kind of like the super prequel one. Like what happened on planet Reach before it got exploded, basically. And Fork, then Halo 4 came out, which was alright. Looking back, I remember people online talking about folks from Retro Studios leaving then. And this after like Metroid Prime 3 came out, and they went to like work at 343 Industries, and like some of them interior areas, it definitely gives some Metroid Prime vibes. And I remember seeing it back then. I was like, okay, I see it now. It's a little different Halo, but it's familiar, I would say. But yeah, that back, I really played more of that gen than the back end of the generation.
I feel that.
Never got PS3. Even in college, there's a couple of times I played PS3 stuff. Dabbled in some of the Infamous games. Now that's the series I actually would wish
Infamous should still be around.
of remasters PlayStation need to do. If they do like the first two with was it a Cole, whatever his name was?
Yeah.
I think Cole Connor. I think those would go. Those would slap and would be great
Cole
to have.
McGrath. Cole McGrath, not
Cole
Connor.
McGrath. It's
Yeah.
some.
They can't make a movie out of it, so they're not bringing it back.
But they could though.
So annoying.
Good.
So annoying. So no, that'd be an easy slam dunk, man. Just slap both of those on there, clean them up, remaster them, make it 60 frames, 4K, whatever you want to do on PS5, whatever.
They gonna God of War that thing. That's what they're gonna do.
Let's have our port studio make a God of War live service game. That anyway, I don't want to go there. I'm sorry. Anyway, that still blows my mind. But yeah, that's mostly it for back then. Lots of 360, lots of Wii. Wii homebrew was crazy. I'll be honest. Learned about the homebrew stuff, and I was like, and it worked perfectly because I was in college student. I was just broke. So it was like later on, I did start getting some of them. Yeah, I just was like the internet was like, here's how you do it, and I was like,
okay.
I do want to try Sonic Colors.
Yeah. And it's a good game to try too. Like Sonic Colors is a good game.
It was a good game. Oh yeah, and then the No More Heroes games for sure.
Yep.
On Wii, No More Heroes games for sure. I know some of it's adult only for sure, but as an action game, very fun, very addictive. But yeah, I think that's mostly it for that. That's really when I was like starting to. I never was set straight away from Nintendo, but like I got stuff later, so I wasn't keeping up as well. The homebrew helped a little bit, but 360 was mostly where I was at. That was mostly where I was at. A lot of online multiplayer stuff then. And then that's where he put most of the other Sonic games too, because I was still big into Sonic back then.
Right.
06 trash. Everybody knows the story. Unleashed was decent, but when you beat the game, you can just play as Sonic all the time, maxed out speed. Super fun game, but you have to play through the game to get there, and the progression is wonky. But I think that's off the top of my head I can really think of.
I think that's the only series like I want to love Sonic, but
oh really?
I can literally count on one hand how many Sonic games I actually like.
Oh wow! Most of them 2D or are they 3D?
Most 2D. It's because 3D Sonic Adventure. The Adventure and Adventure 2 were like the main ones, but then you have Generations. You have Sonic 2 that will forever sit with me as a good game.
Oh yeah,
and I'm gonna go with Rush over Colors.
Sonic Rush. See, that's the thing. Like, I managed to borrow when I had a DS. I got a DS later, mostly for Pokemon, but I got a DS for later. Because that's when I got back. Actually, we haven't really been talking about the handheld stuff. That's a whole
no.
Yeah, that's a whole different beast.
I'll touch on it real quick. I guess you can say that's what 3DS was that gen?
DS.
DS was
Sonic
that gen?
Was DS. Yeah.
Oh, Sonic Rush. Oh, wait, Sonic Rush DS. My bad. Okay, yeah. So the one time I did play and I actually borrowed it and was playing for a bit. I listened to the soundtrack all the time because it's by the Jesser Radio dude, and I was like, oh yeah, this soundtrack is fire. But the levels in the back half, there was so many like bombless pit levels that
Yeah.
kind of got frustrating for me after a while. So I never, so I like, I think it's a personal thing, and I think I'm in the minority, but I just never, after that, I just never really went back to them. But I like watching people that know how to play them play well.
Mhm.
I really like watching people play those. So, but yeah, I definitely understand. As we all know, and there was a time where I was like 3 Sonic is I'm out here, I'm out. But they
Yeah.
brought me back in a couple more times, but mostly was just like, man,
I'll be out.
Right.
I'll be out by myself and say that if they would have continued to build on it, I think Sonic Boom was the way to go.
You know, that one had a good framework. It
did.
had the 06 problem. It just
Yeah.
they never
was
never
broken.
finished it. At least the bugs in that one are actually really entertaining. Well, outside of like just the memes. Like 06 is just like loading screens, like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
just a lot of things. That was supposed to be Adventure 3.
Yeah. Boom.
That also
should
should have been a slam dunk, but
yeah, 06 should have been a slam dunk. It was horribly wrong.
yeah, because I
Human
remember
Sonic.
yeah, like that first trailer they showed. My first thought was like Final Fantasy Sonic, and then they showed the running and the graphics, and I was like, oh wow, okay, they're all in with this. They had a whole thing at E3. I'll never forget. Sega had this they had this presentation at E3 05 where they were it was like the E3 demo of Sonic 06, and they were talking about the that's when they got the Havoc engine in there, and I think every game has Havoc engine built in or some sort now. But basically they're like, oh, look at the physics. But they had them get on the like a box and like jump, and the box will move around. And I was like, whoa, Sonic is going crazy in HD now or whatever. But it did go crazy. They went off the rails crazy. But...
Sure did.
Oh man, but yeah. Well, again, we know the song and dance of Sonic 06. No, there's fan PC remakes of it now, which are actually decent. I'll give it up for that. But yeah, that was an interesting time. Jumping to HD, not in like really good HD, like 720p HD, I guess you could say.
And we should have never strayed away from it until we got everything down pat.
I agree. We should have stayed. Like Nintendo's. I mean, the Wii was just the 2 GameCubes duct taped together meme. Which once I learned how those consoles are built, I was like, okay, so that joke has a little bit of merit, a little bit, but at the same time, Wii games was like definitely like, which honestly, GameCube games are still pretty clean. They're just more like just more GameCube games with just motion controls or some of them.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, I'm sorry, I didn't even mention the other the obvious ones, Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 for sure.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna get the 3D All Stars they did on the Switch, but they missed out on Galaxy 2. That's my favorite of the 2.
I feel like there's a reason behind that. I just don't know what.
It just seems so odd. Because I was ready because we had all the rumors that year. And I was like, all right, let's see them, Nintendo. I want to see all of them. And they're like, here's 64. And I'm like, okay. And there's like, here's Sunshine. I'm like, well, for all the Mega Sunshine fans, you got it. There you go, 1080p.
Right.
Here's Galaxy 1. And they're like, and that's the show. And I'm like, where? Where's Galaxy 2? And they said, yeah, it'll be coming out this date. And I'm like, where is it? Yeah, but Galaxy 2 is the Galaxy games are goated for sure. Wii generation, looking back, a lot of interesting things with that one. Virtual console, WiiWare, Wii Shop Wednesdays, as people will call it. That's when they would drop the new games.
Wii Shop Wednesdays.
Wii Shop Channel Wednesday. That's when they would drop them. I'll be honest, I didn't really get a lot of the virtual console game. I didn't get a ton. I felt like the money to like buy them would add up over time. So I got like a couple. I got like, what was it? Paper Mario. I got that. And then there was what was one of the other, oh god, what else? It was one of the Metroids. I think I got on there. And then I had like some of the other indie games like the Bit Trip Runners and stuff like that. Or the Bit Trip games, yeah. But yeah, virtual console was a big thing. It was like the first time trying to offer a lot of like decade or not decade, but like 2-decade-old games and stuff to the current gen at that time, which no one else ruled. Xbox had the Xbox Live Arcade, which is crazy because that was also really good. Xbox, they kind of seem like they they seem kind of like a fluke sometimes. Like the first 2 gens are really good, and after that, they just did not understand why they were successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
But
missed,
overall,
they
yeah.
missed the homework.
They lost the homework. They're like, yeah, we wrote it down, we studied it, and then they're like, where is it? And it's like, I don't know. Let's focus on TV. But anyway,
Right. Something happened.
Yeah, I don't know
Crazy.
what happened with them.
No, I don't know, man. I don't know. But all in all, 7th gen for me. A lot more side, just more on Xbox 360 than like the GameCube, and then Wii. I got into it later, but the Wii was like Mario Kart, Metroid Primes.
Mhm.
I did try Xenoblade Chronicles. A friend of
Okay.
mine at the job, he was a big Xenoblade fan. I was aware of like Operation Rainfall and everything, but I tried it and I just was like, I don't get it, and it didn't click for me until they brought it back on the Switch, and I guess I just was playing more RPGs now, so
Right.
was more open to it. But yeah, a lot of online stuff. GTA, mostly 360 and Wii. A couple of times the PS3.
Okay.
That's it.
So for me, I'm gonna keep mine short again.
Yeah.
So for I got my 360 after everybody else. Out of
Like way after, like a whole bunch of years later.
Yeah. Yeah. Because no, that's not necessarily true. Because I got it before the PS3, but I think it was maybe 2 years after. Because 360 came out in 2005, right?
Yeah.
2004, 2005.
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got
yeah.
so I got it 2007. Because I know I got the Wii first in the generation, and then I got the 360. And then later when they finally did the price drop for the original PlayStation 3, I got a PlayStation 3. So my starting games for the Wii obviously was Zelda and Red Steel.
Red Steel.
Red Steel. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. So those were classics. And then when I got a 360, I had
Thanks, bro.
But that was later too. But shout outs to both of those. I had Blue Dragon.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had the Halo series, and I feel like there was another game that was in there. I think that's when I bought Most Wanted.
Did you get Far Cry?
Did I get who?
Far Cry.
I did have Far Cry. I have Far Cry 3. I think that's when I tried Just Cause 2.
Oh yeah.
When I first had Just Cause, because Ubisoft was really pushing during that. Shout outs to the end of EA at this point in time, because there was no longer EA challenge everything.
Nope.
Which is to me them in their prime, but that's when they lost all the way around, right? So they had live, they lost to 2K with live.
Yeah.
They still were holding on to Madden. Fight Night was still a thing, but it was slowly dying out.
It was dying. It was dying.
Yeah.
It was dying, yeah.
Because originally, I don't know if y'all remember, originally it was Knockout Kings, and then it became Fight Night.
And you know what's crazy? I think that last entry though, that Champions, might have been their best one ever.
It was their best one, yeah.
Yeah. And then they died. Oh no! But in that same vein, they brought something out that I'm still trying to figure out why there isn't another one yet, and we haven't heard about it. But the Skate series,
Skate
single-handedly killed off Tony Hawk at that time.
That was a big feat.
Yeah, I remember when they had the wheelers skateboards and stuff, and people was trying to get those and breaking the mess out of them.
Yeah, I remember those.
Tony Hawk's Ride.
The ride game.
Yeah.
They had the little somewhat realistic skateboard you can kind of like spin on the floor. Totally not.
Ain't no way in the world. Nope.
Sony had a game that I'm actually surprised because I think one of you told me that it was an Astrobot as a shout out. But it kind of lost its way to God of War, and it should have been the new God of War, to be honest with you. Heavenly Sword.
Oh yeah, that's Ninja Theory, right?
Yeah,
That's Ninja
yeah,
Theory. Yep.
Have I remember
That
when that
also should get
game
a
came out
remaster.
yeah.
because
in my
they
opinion.
relied that was their one of their games to showcase the 6 axis.
Yep.
Now it was done
Mm.
poorly, don't get it twisted, but it
Mm.
still was a game that could have done really well because what you could have done and where you could have been right now if you stayed with Heavenly Sword, you could have gone this route that you did with God of War and then kept the original hack and slash type style of God of War trilogies with
Yep.
Heavenly Sword.
Yep.
Mm.
You could have had
And
best
they
of
did
both
not.
worlds.
Interesting.
They did not, and they didn't even touch her. I don't. I'm surprised. Like I said, I'm surprised she's in Astrobot. Her little pieces in Astrobot, because I
Hey,
feel
what
like
part of Astrobot is she in there?
No,
is she in the second one?
No, she's
Oh,
not.
she's not. She's not in it. Oh wow, that
I
makes
think
it worse.
There's
I think what they're talking about is like the cameo little
characters,
Yeah,
characters.
the
right?
cameo
Yeah.
pieces. Yeah,
Yeah, because I think she
She's
is in
still not
those,
in
but
it.
but as far as the like levels that were dedicated, it was just God of War, Ape Escape, Horizon, and I think there was like another Uncharted, and then something else.
Like
But-
like
Loco
she's one of the
Roco.
people we collect.
The collect, I think so. Yeah,
Mhm.
she's one of the collect ones.
Ryoko. Yeah,
Mhm.
Okay.
or Is it Miyoko? Miyoko.
I don't let me lie to you.
Something
Wait,
like
which
that.
one? Which one?
The main character.
Oh, her
Uh,
name? Oh, I don't know. I never knew.
Yeah, that's what I let me lie
But
to you.
anyway, so yeah, shout outs to her, even though she's never gonna get a game ever again.
Never again.
Never-
It's
never
never
again.
happening. No.
Yeah.
Shout outs to Mass Effect. Mass Effect originally was on Xbox. I don't know how they
Mass
let that one
Effect.
go. They missed that mark.
Dragon Age was popping off then too.
Dragon Age.
Oh
was
yeah,
popping
that's right.
Fable 3.
The Fable games 2 and 3.
Yeah. Oh
came
yeah,
out
2
during
was
that
on there.
time.
My bad. Yeah,
Two
2
is
Um,
definitely the better one though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was better
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, for sure.
Lionhead died around this time.
Yep.
For Xbox, which is wild.
Crazy.
Yeah, they weren't a thing. Let's see. Shout outs to Mirror's Edge. I had
Oh, yeah.
another one that was in mind too. You said Mirror's Edge, but I had another one that was in mind.
I think Dying Light came out on these consoles.
Dying Light came out on
And they
here.
said, "Here's a sequel," and then years went by.
Mhm.
I mean, cool, it came out. Shout out to them for real. They actually got it out, but it took a while.
Dang, it's on the tip of my tongue. I'm trying to think of the.
Pause.
Yeah, pause. Super
Yeah,
pause.
pause.
Super pause.
Y'all fast with that, boy.
But
Oh yeah, Forza.
Forza. Thank you.
Forza.
Forza came out during
Out the
this
Dark
time.
Void.
Playing Horizon right now.
Gears of War. So all the IPs that we really know Xbox for really kind of shine during this time. Shout outs to Prototype 1 and 2.
Yeah,
That
man.
was definitely the better one on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like they could have done a whole lot with that, continuing that franchise. But again, it's one of those games that I don't think the second one did as well, so they were just like trash
That
it.
one super flopped. Unfortunately.
Scrap it. Yeah.
I think it was just I think it was like poor circumstance. Like I think Infamous was out.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
Infamous.
think more people just got Infamous. Because I remember when both Infamous and Prototype came out, I remember seeing on like message boards, they were like, "Oh, what you like better, Infamous or Prototype?" Because I mean, they're not the exact same game, but they're both
They're
third person,
close.
run around
They're
cities with
close.
superpowers. You superheroes low key.
Yep.
And then 2, which I always heard was actually pretty good, but yeah, it just flopped. So
So shout out to the Uncharted series.
yeah.
Let's see, the Batman Arkham series started on here. LA Noire started off on here. This is technically speaking the start of the Red Dead Redemption era, but not Red Dead itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Red Dead Revolver, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
BioShock, Borderlands started in this generation.
Yep. I didn't get the Borderlands until the second one. I actually got the first one on Switch recently. I haven't really been playing as much because I wanted to give it another try to see if I can get into that first one. That beginning is so bland, and they fixed it in 2 by like a lot. But yeah, Borderlands.
Hey, Fallout came out that was it this series? Oh, this gen?
I think it was PlayStation 2 era, actually.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't become aware of Fallout until Fallout 3.
Yeah, Fallout 3 was
Well, the best
my-
ones with this gen. Put like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I think the New Vegas one came out this year as
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
Dang, what was I gonna say? Oh, the Darkness series. I don't know why they don't still make those games.
Darkness.
Cause that was cause I'm gonna say that was 2K. 2K dropped that game. Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
Mafia.
Darksiders.
Yeah, Mafia.
Oh yeah, Mafia came out
Darksiders.
around the time. Yeah.
Yep.
Darksiders. Oh yeah,
I
Dark.
feel like
Yeah.
there's some. I know I'm forgetting something else.
Did I say BioShock? BioShock came out.
Yeah, you
during-
said Bioshock.
Yeah.
Portal. Portal came out during. that time.
Oh, man.
Ooh.
Portal 2. That's in like my top like 10, 20 games of all time. It varies what I'm talking about, but yeah.
Left 4 Dead. The Left 4 Dead came out.
Dishonored came out on
Dishonored. Yep.
Mm.
Deus Ex was before this, but the popular Deus Ex game.
Yeah,
came
they
out
came
on
at
that.
around the time. Yeah.
True.
Same with the Metro games. Metro Last Light.
Oh.
Force Unleashed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't. You know what? I didn't know there was a Wii version until like they put out. They remastered it, and it was in like a direct in the past couple years.
Yeah,
And
because
they
all
didn't-
those
they
versions
didn't do it
were
right.
like, yeah,
Oh, it wasn't a good port. Dang, that's
They didn't do it right.
it doesn't even play like the other ones.
No.
It looked cool though. It looked like the lightsaber battles were a bit different, but like in a still cool way.
Yeah,
So that sucks that they kind of botched the port.
we got quite a few Transformers games during this era too.
Oh yes. Well, I'm
Yeah,
actually kind
I
of.
like the because
That's a good
Platinum.
one.
That's the one that I like. The one
Which
that
one?
Platinum made. The one.
Oh,
that
the Platinum
made.
one. Yeah, the Cybertron.
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That was
Because this was like Platinum's era right here. Because they did that one. I think they did what the TMNT game. Did they do one?
Yeah,
This
Oh,
is cheating,
yeah.
but I do have this version of it of Transformers. This is the Platinum Games Transformers game.
Yeah.
AKA, I like to call it Bayonetta 2. And that's not a bad thing. It's like there's similar mechanics in that one from 2, and I'm like, okay, these are kind of similar, but that game is underrated, but you can't get it anymore. It is delisted.
Yeah, so those are all the games that I can think of. Crisis.
Crisis.
Yeah, those are all of the ones that I see. You already said Dragon Age. Was Dragon's Dogma a PS3 game or a PS4 game?
I thought
It was
it was
PS3, 360.
It
Was it?
Yeah,
Oh,
they
I thought
they
that
had
was-
like the original.
Yeah.
beginning of 4, wasn't it?
It was like a late 360 PS3 game, and then they
Okay.
did like an enhanced version, and that's Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. And
Yeah,
that
Dark
one
Arisen,
came out on
yeah.
PS4, and yeah, that's actually a pretty good game. Once you get into it, it's got some weird stuff about it. Once you get into it, it's cool. But if you don't ever get up off of that weird kind of, it does not hold your hand hurdle, then it's a pretty fun game, and it's a good Switch version too. So
I just lost.
Oh,
this
dogma.
And Injustice is my last other.
oh yeah, Injustice. Oh yeah, that's
When Billy Batson got his eyes blasted out. That was
Oh,
Shut
Metro.
Clark, what are you doing?
I was just gonna say that, J Biggs. Thank you. Scarface and The Godfather.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Scarface was slept
Scarface.
on.
Yo,
Godfather and
Scarface
Wii was
ill.
also one of them ones.
Yeah.
That's when they put in a lot of effort to them Wii versions.
Yeah,
Um,
Well, some of them, not all of them, but some of them.
And last but not least,
Dead Rising. Sorry.
Oh yeah,
I just
Dead
remembered.
Rising. Yep. Shout outs to the greatest set of golf games.
Hey, you forgot one shout out though, because this crushed my heart seeing this.
Uh-oh.
Last of Us.
Yeah, the beginning of the end.
Nah, I think we could have left that one alone.
I like the game, but
first
I'm not
time I
like a
played
super
it-
fan of it.
The first time I played it, it did kind of like playing it like now is kind of like whatever. But
yeah.
like
Yeah.
back then, like just that beginning, and the little girl got killed. I was like, oh, because you play as her, so you think, okay, you about to. And plus, on top of that, you see a little girl at the, you know what I'm saying, like on the trailer. So you play as her, and you're thinking, okay, this the girl that you play as. Nah. Then like just the whole lore and how deep it gets and stuff like that. It's good as a series. It's good as a movie. As far as a video game, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like I honestly, and this is something that I'm curious about. If we look at all the games that start spawning in the like PS3 on up era, even including Uncharted, if Sony went the route of making different IPs and just making those movies, where would we be right now with Sony?
You know what? And I was thinking that same exact thing, because I was like, Sony is more than just, you know, a video game company. They're a record label. They're a movie company. They're a
still a phone manufacturer.
Yeah,
they still make MP3 players. Expensive, but they still make them.
My thing is, what's their problem? What they do?
They try to bring the Walkman brand back.
Like,
if they didn't charge so much,
what's going on with them? Like, what are they doing? Like, where are they losing? Because it seems as if they're losing on every cylinder right now, besides PlayStation.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to answer your question, because I mean, this was a couple years back when a lot of things dropped off for them. But when you look at Sony, and even this was even when I did my little short stint at Best Buy when I was working there part time not too long ago, and you see like every TV, everything that's there, the Bravia TVs to me are still the best TVs.
They are,
like,
they're so really overpriced.
Nice. But they're overpriced.
Sony
it's the same thing with their phones. Their phones are premium, top-notch phones that have top-notch cameras because they make great cameras too. But they're overpriced. And that's inherently where, like, when you really stop and think about it, and I don't want to go deep into it, but when we think about Android didn't have a main person in the beginning. Like, there were some that were trying to fight for it. Like, T-Mobile had, like, their G series before they got into the Nexus series. I think, like, LG tried to jump in there a little bit here and there, but then it wasn't really until Samsung jumped in there and really kicked it off with that S3. Because I know it was real big on the Olympics around that time because they had a red, white, and blue version. I remember it like it was yesterday. So Samsung kind of became the front runner for Android. But the thing is, Sony could have been that, but they were just stupidly overpriced. Yeah. And they didn't want you to swap out batteries, none of that other stuff. And that's when everything started tanking with them. So it's like, okay, yeah, the gaming front is cool because you're not overpricing minus PS3, but you're not overpricing people over here. But your movies at the time wasn't hitting like they should have been hitting.
Michael Jackson sitting up here whistle blowing on y'all.
Yeah, the music at that point. Remember, around that time, music was still heavy LimeWire going into like the piracy era. So the music was dying because we were getting ready to slowly transfer into the streaming era. And then when you think about anything else they were doing, nothing was hitting for Sony. So they sold off a lot of their assets, and really PlayStation was the only one making them profit. So when you think about what could have got you movies, if Uncharted was that movie that you dropped, and I ain't talking about the one with Buddy from Spider-Man, but
Tom Holland.
Like if you genuinely start off with Uncharted as a movie first, because usually that's how it's done. The movie's first and then the game comes after it. But now they're doing game and then movie, and it don't really translate that way. It really doesn't. But yeah, I think they did it backwards. So,
they should have did a God of War a long time ago. But you know what?
Long time ago. Imagine what number they could have been on right now with God of War.
They could have picked. They could have picked nearly any popular male figure.
Vin Diesel is Kratos.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
They had a chance to even tap into that with 300. They had the director, like who directed 300?
Oh, was that Zack Snyder?
Was that Snyder? Yeah. So I mean,
how it all looked dark and stuff.
Yeah, right. I think that was. It definitely was like he did Sin City too, didn't he?
Yeah, Zack Snyder. Yep.
He did.
Yeah. So like you had somebody that could have gave you your vision like a mug, because I'm looking at 300. I'm like, okay, just throw Kratos in there, throw some Olympian guys with some effects and some lightning and some and all that type of stuff. Like, no, this will go ham. This will go in.
Yeah,
right?
that would be super raw.
They,
But
they missed their point.
But to echo what you're saying though, 300 was 2006. Spartacus kicked off in 2010. That's where they really they could have ate, because everybody was into big buff dudes back in the in the Roman era, the Greek mythology. Like, they were into it at that point in time. You could have gotten there with a movie or a TV series and then ushered in the game later. I really feel like they should have went the movie route and then had the game come a little bit later and kept it to where the games were games and not the cinematic games. Like, they're good games in their own right, not saying they're bad. It's just, I feel like people gravitate to the games when the movies first versus the other way around.
Yeah.
Because the only ones that pulled it off the opposite way around is what, Sonic, Mario, and Pokemon.
Yeah,
like, and even then Pikachu, like nobody else pulled that off.
I mean, they had a cheat code though. I mean, they had that Japanese cutesy wootsy.
Oh yeah, they built it up though. Yeah, they built up their name, and we know Sony doesn't do that. Sony will get rid of you after a while because Uncharted should still be here, but we're not getting another Uncharted.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's crazy.
Always new IPs.
Yeah, 4 was the last one.
Yeah.
That's because
we
of
done
what's
with that.
dead in there though, right? They killed, like, they totally ended it.
Even then,
I mean, but they chose.
They can
to do
still
that.
follow his daughter.
Yeah.
They kind of spelled it out for us too.
Yeah.
I think Uncharted will come back again, but it'll be, will take too long to make from announcement.
Well, if
It's gonna be combined with Tomb Raider.
But
They don't even own that IP
that's
anymore either.
But that's the problem though, because like I said, we talked about this on the Winging It podcast before. Like, I get it. As a developer, you probably don't want to keep working on the same series over and over again.
Right.
But that's where third-party companies come in. Hey, come and make another version of this game while they go off and do whatever it is they want to do.
Yeah.
And then that way you keep the franchise alive. But Sony is an advocate of, you don't want to do it anymore, we're not going to make you do it.
And you know what's wild? Nintendo even tried that.
They tried it, yeah.
Nintendo tried it with Bandai Namco, and then they were like,
sure
show us what you got." And they were like, "Don't like that."
Get back in here now. But I'm working on this. I don't care. Get in there.
Care. Put it on the shelf now. Yeah. So basically that's gonna be it for us guys, because we're like almost reaching 4 hours.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten to the 8th generation.
No.
We
yet.
haven't, man.
We're going into the 10th generation this year, and we didn't even reach the 8th.
There's so much to talk about.
It is.
Though.
It
The
is.
stories are interesting.
It is. So we'll save part 2. I'll try and get everybody back on for part 2 for next week. And hopefully there's nothing that happens in between that week that has to be talked about. So real quickly here, before we get out of here, Jack, what you got up for us?
Oh man, so if you're not familiar, I started a news. I started a news segment on my channel. Now, originally it was supposed to be a news segment and kicking off the podcast, but in the venture of not wanting to spread myself thin, because those news segments take a lot of energy, a lot of recording, a lot of pre-planning, script writing, the whole 9 yards. So what I'm doing now is I'm going 100% in on the news segment, and the podcast will just be me on here and on the Winging It podcast, right? So, you can be overloaded on podcasts sometimes. So it's like I'm already on 2 of them, so let's not add a third. But the news segment in itself, in a way, for this last episode, kind of was reminiscent of a podcast. Because it was a little bit longer than the first one. So that's where I'm still playing. Like, I'm still trying to play around with, do I make it more of a shorter segment, or do I make it like the 30-minute to 40-some-minute segment? Because initially it was an hour, and then I chopped something out of the segment, which then turned it into another one. So I'm still playing around with the idea, but I do love the reception of Rex and, everything that kind of came along with it, of kind of being the more professional versus the unprofessional, personnel. So I think that it's a nice little spin, but of course with time, everything evolves, and even when we talk about subject matter and you know, starting to produce shorts to kind of prepare everybody for the episode that comes up, and you know, just trying to figure out what I want to do with it. But you know, the only thing that's really cemented is the characters, as well as, you know, bringing people on to be other newscasters sometimes, you know, to kind of like go to them to speak on a certain subject line. So I mean, I'll be, you know, putting out, you know, sending out the people to kind of get them on it for sure. But honestly, it's been something bigger than I thought, and that's why I told my wife. I was like, you know, it's been sitting up here for so doggone long, man, and it's just a matter of like watching enough content and sitting down and just, you know, making it all work out in your heads before you put it down on paper. So I mean, I think everybody here that's in this chat, like, that really came through, and when I saw the comments of like Rex, I was like, okay. So it was right. Like, the way I thought about it was right. So it worked out.
It
I
was
don't need.
entertaining, man. It was a good video.
I appreciate it, because I don't
was.
need 1,000 people to tell me it was right. As long as it's like the main ones that I know watch our stuff, I was like, okay, cool. Then it's right in the right lane. I didn't go too far with it. But yeah, I mean, with that it'll continue to go every Thursday. I tend to try to switch up on the subjects and not let it be like, okay, same thing that week. You know, just my own different subjects. But then also too, as far as the music's concerned, I'm bad about this, but the the album is in October for sure. That I do know is for sure. It's in October. I know me and TJ set a date and I totally forgot. But it's so far out. You know, the album's been done since January. So it's like, all right, cool. We just pushed it out to October to give me time to get the videos together. And then, you know, we got 1,000 Star in November. I almost said something I wasn't supposed to say, but there's something else after that too. So yeah, there's something else coming up after that too, that we're working very, very hard on, and you know, I'll be, you know, part producer in that too, along with like the arcade series that's coming next year that I'll be helping produce on too. So it's a lot of music on top of that, and a lot of production, and it's moving, man. You know, 2025 is a lot of content, and really a big goal of, we're gonna still have fun with this, but we're also looking to get our numbers up too. So it's a matter of like, all right, let's really take this stuff in, let's put some more money in our pockets, and let's get to a point of continue to having fun, and then monetize off this stuff and see where it goes, you know, see how big we can make it.
For sure.
But that's it, man.
Heck yeah.
Okay. If y'all haven't already, which I don't know why you wouldn't, because he has been on the channel for forever and a day. Make sure you go. Make sure you go follow Action Jack on both YouTube and on Twitter as well. Geronimo, what did you got up for us?
Oh man, so the videos have been kind of slowing down a bit recently. Well, I did one from the Monster Hunter Wilds beta last week. Basically, I just did like a kind of a silly video with like cooking with the cheese, because I missed it in the first beta. I want to do one because Capcom, they're really proud of how they did the cooking scenes in this game. And it does, for the game, it does look pretty good. And
that graphically, it looks really, really good.
It does, yeah. Because it's just, well, in the beta, I think there's gonna be more in the full game, but this one is either just like steak, fish, a head of cabbage, and then like whatever, and yeah, you get your little stat buffs and stuff. But yeah, I did that video. Really, February has been like the month of like betas and network tests. That's kind of like a racing game. I did actually get into it from a friend of mine. Thankfully, he had another code. He just dumped a bunch of emails in it basically and got a couple of them. And I want to do a video of my impressions on it and how it would compare to like Sonic Transformed, which is in my opinion, the best of the 3 Sonic racing games that's been out. But over just a glimpse of it though, it's good, it's different, but it's still fun. They have some things to work on for it though. But I'm gonna see about getting that video out next week for sure. But yeah, once Monster Hunter Wilds actually comes out next week, then it's gonna be a lot of different gameplay clips of that. So it's gonna be channel's become a gameplay channel for a little while until really until April 2nd. For the Switch 2 Direct, so that's what it's gonna be. Yeah, I'm sure we all getting our plans ready for that. I did take the day off, so I will be around.
I'm planning on taking the day off too. Not just yet. I ain't gonna call it just yet.
Yeah, I just was like, I can't remember what it was. It was something that came out where I was like, yeah, maybe that might go crazy that day. I might have to. No, I remember what it was. It was the news this week where they were talking about they got rid of the goal. They're getting rid of the goal points in March and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
the goal
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is not good. They're doing this, but maybe they're gonna replace it with something better.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see it in the April 2nd direct. So
Yep.
I wasn't gonna make a video on that this week initially, but then I was like, I'm not really as passionate about that because
Me
I feel
either.
like most that are they're gonna try and do the whole rage bait. Nintendo is arrogant. Nintendo's back, and I'm just like, I don't really
Yeah.
feel that with this. I just
They're
think
losing touch with their fan base.
this is the downfall. This is a Wii U again. Like, it's nothing like that. But overall, yeah, we got some more content coming for sure, and I do have some other ideas that are in the background. Really waiting for some other equipment to get for more retro content like it, but yeah, we're moving on up too. We're really trying to get to 500 subscribers, but slow rolling for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you haven't subscribed to Geronimo, which again I don't know why you haven't,
Right.
make sure you
I should upload
make sure you subscribe to my man's Geronimo, man. So y'all know the daily. As usual, Stormcast every Saturday at 7:00. We will have part 2 of this. Because I have a feeling,
Yeah,
even though we're talking 8th, 9th, and coming in a 10th,
that's an
I-
easy 2 hour right
I
there.
have a
Yeah.
feeling it's going to be nearly as long
1 hour for each.
as the whole 1 through 8. So
Yeah.
I have a strong feeling that it's going to be equally as long.
Thank y'all for hanging in there.
Right,
Everybody in the
yeah,
chat. We greatly
yeah.
appreciate you. I know I was a
Yes.
little long-winded on a couple of them.
We love it. We love it.
Yeah.
But with that being said, so make sure you come back on the channel at 7:00 next Saturday. Tomorrow we have the WinginIT podcast. I can give you a hint on what the conversation is. Every now and then I can get away with it. Every now
Oh
and then.
man.
So WinginIT podcast tomorrow. Title is "It's That Time Once Again."
Yep.
Mhm.
I gotta be there live for sure. It's 7:00, right? 7:00.
Yep.
7:00.
I'll make sure to be there for sure. I'll
Um,
make sure.
And then on the Jill podcast, the Juice is Loose podcast with Terminator Juice, is also on Monday at 7:00 as well. I'm sure we have plenty to talk about too. As I'm sure Juice saw this podcast and he's gonna be like, there's so much I have to talk about that you missed. So,
Yeah, I'm
So-
glad I dropped that podcast idea. It's way too many podcasts, bro.
yeah, it's just so many ideas, man. So
Yeah.
thank you guys so much. Make sure you hit the like button on the way out. Thank you, Jay Biggs. Thank you, Exodia.
Yeah.
Risky at some point in time was in the building, so I will shout him out. Dark Boy, appreciate it. All the moderators holding it down. Joycey was in here earlier. RJ in here. Brand Smith, thank you. I thought I saw Squared, but maybe I didn't see Squared.
Mhm.
Samuel, thank you. Thank you, Trae Vito, who had to leave a little bit earlier.
Mhm.
We appreciate you all for coming through, and we will see you guys later.